You guys hear me all right? I think I pressed the wrong button.
We can hear you, Nat.
Thank you. God, I thought
we can read your lips and know that you got the.
I pressed something, and all of a sudden the voice came on. I'm like, what did I just do? I've been doing pretty good for 16 months or whatever it is. Oh, all right.
Megan, you're there.
Yep, I'm here.
Leslie's there.
I'm here.
Greetings, everybody. Should we start with the calling roll here? I don't see John.
I'm here.
Okay. Let's call roll. Nat,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Judith, Fritz,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Stephen Welch,
Aye.
Campbell Sutton, Dave Callahan.
Aye.
Okay, and staff, I'm assuming we've got Catherine there.
Catherine's not here tonight.
Okay. So we have some attendees. All right, greetings to everybody here. Thank you for being with us tonight. Leslie, I think this is still a Zoom meeting, and we don't know yet whether the governor is going to change that, do we?
Nothing has been extended, and we are planning on an in-person meeting for you in July.
Okay.
In July.
In person in July. So that's something to look forward to, everybody. So our agenda tonight is still consistent with the governor's agenda, which requires that we advise you that we're operating by distance means by Zoom rather than in person, and that our members of the board are here with us as well as our alternates. And I think we're ready at this point to go through the call to order and approval of the agenda. John? Fritz, you look like it's good to see you. So approval of the agenda, let me call roll on that. Fritz?
Yes. Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Judith? Aye. And Megan, we have minutes from October and November, do we?
Yes.
Megan says yes.
Through you, Madam Chair. Meg, do we have the October 26th and the November 18th meetings, minutes to approve? Because one of the agendas only showed the November 18th.
And the staff report shows, no, both show it. 26th and the 18th, the ones that I have at least.
Okay.
Did the agenda just have the 18th on it and not the 26th?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm looking at this, the interactive one that I can pull up from my screen. It only shows the November 18th one, but on the staff report that I printed out shows that there were two, the October 26th. I just want to make sure both of them were ready to be accepted.
Yeah, they both should be.
Okay.
Okay. John, do you want to?
Yeah, no, then I'll make a motion to accept both the October 26th and the November 18th, 2020 minutes.
Okay, Fritz,
Second,
Nat seconded, Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, thank you. So onward, we're going to do second dwellings tonight first. EBWC LLC for Lincoln Avenue. Megan, do you want to tell us anything about that?
No, I think if it's all right with you, Madam Chair, all of these second dwellings are straightforward. There's no second curb cuts being requested of any of them. So the recommended motion would be to just go ahead and approve all those in one swoop, so long as any board members didn't have questions or
Okay.
to recuse.
And that's 4 Lincoln Avenue, 12 Brant Point Road, and 6 Belvedere Avenue Garage Apartment. Is that right?
Yes.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
And I'll
second.
second.
Dave moved, John seconded, I think, Nat,
yep, I heard that. Aye,
Judith, I think that's everybody.
Fritz.
Fritz,
You need food, right?
so we voted unanimously for those 4. Next up is our A&R plans, 3 Raceway Drive. Megan,
Madam Chair, if I may, all of the A&R, so long as anyone doesn't have questions or need to recuse, should be set for approval of endorsement with the exception of 3 Korea Lane, because that's tied to a hearing that we'll talk about later on, as well as 29 Hinsdale has withdrawn their application, so we would not be approving that at this time.
okay, thank you. So,
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to
Raceway.
approve the A&Rs with the exception of 3 Correa Lane to be voted on later, and also the removal of the, Megan, could you, 29 Hinsdale. That's my motion to approve the other A&Rs.
and
Second.
is there anybody with a recusal, John or Nat or Dave?
nope,
So that's the proposed motion. Shall we take account on that? Nat,
aye,
John,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, I. Thank you.
Right, I need to fill out my paperwork.
2 Highland Avenue, I'm sorry, in 6 Highland Avenue.
Oh,
um,
are we on preliminary plan?
no, those were the A&Rs. We're gonna leave, we're leaving out,
We're still
we're
on
leaving out-
A&R.
Okay, so
Well-
drink 2 bottles of water and come in for 7 o'clock.
we're leaving out the Vino one, right?
Yes.
Megan?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Until later.
So we
Plans.
I'm sorry, Megan.
So we're just leaving out the 3 Korea. So we're all, I think we're all set with
Right.
it.
with 2 Highland, 6 Highland, Nanahummock LLC and Nanahummock Preserve Homeowners Association Trust. 58 Baxter Road, 31 Coffin Street, 20 and 22 Clifton. And then we're holding off Korea, but we can do 8 Walnut Lane and 12 Liberty Street.
Yeah.
No, 12 Liberty is a,
Before
Of
we get,
Liberty.
that's before we get to the public hearing. So anybody have questions about that?
So you want a separate, you're asking for a separate motion for Walnut and Hinsdale, or is that part of our original approval?
Part of our original proposal.
Okay. Okay, that's what I thought.
Nat,
Okay.
you want to make a motion on that?
Mhm.
I make a motion to approve all the A&Rs,
Already
including,
do that?
except
Didn't
for.
we just did that now.
We just did.
That's what
We
I
just did
thought. So
Yeah.
but then we,
So-
and we include, okay, so we've
Yeah.
already included those other 2, right?
Yeah,
No.
we removed the Korea, we eliminated Hinsdale.
Yep.
And
Then we've got Highland, 2, 6 Highland, Nanahummock, ABCET, Amos Hufstetter, Clifton Street Nominee Trust, 31 Coffin Street, 20 and 22 Clifton Street, 8 Walnut, 12 Liberty, and then we eliminated 29 Hinsdale, and we're holding off Korea Lane. So are you ready for a motion on that composite set? Nat,
Aye.
okay, who wants to second?
Okay.
John,
sure,
I think,
second.
yeah.
okay. Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, I. Okay, so that takes us down to the following 3 Korea Lane.
Madam Chair, if it's okay, we'll hold off on Korea Lane until we're done with the public hearing, if that's okay with you.
All right. How
So are
about,
we on to preliminary plans?
Yeah, so we're at the bottom of page 5 of
Mhm.
the staff report.
Yep.
okay, so preliminary plans, Dooley Family Trust, John P. Dooley Jr., I'm sorry, Jr., John P. Dooley Jr. trustees, 201 Hummock Pond Road. This is a preliminary plan.
I brought over Dan Malloy to the panelist list. He's here to represent the applicant.
Thank you, Dan. Welcome.
You're on mute, Dan.
Afternoon. Do you want me to just jump in?
Go right ahead.
Okay. So it's 201 Hummock Pond Road. If the board recalls, last month you just reviewed and approved an A&R plan on the same property. The owners are trying to do some estate planning to figure out what they want to do with the property. So the property was just subject to a zoning change at town meeting. So the preliminary plan was filed in order to freeze the zoning in the event that they decide to do something under R20 versus town meeting just rezoned it to VR. So what you have in front of you is a simple 2-lot preliminary subdivision plan with a conforming roadway layout in 2 lots. There's not a lot of surprise to this one. You've just reviewed it, as I said, as an A&R plan. If it were developed in this manner, there'd be access off Hummock Pond Road. The property will be serviced by town water and on-site septic systems. There's, in all likelihood, you're talking 2 lots on this plan as shown with a potential of 3 if it's laid out in that direction. So at this point, really, it's estate planning. I just don't know what the owners want to do yet. So we're trying to secure all their options while they plan it out.
So do you have anything else you want to tell us about?
There's really not much to it. It's a,
I know there's probably a swimming pool in their future here with a lug 2 and a VR.
swimming pools are allowed on the property under the zoning. Under VR, if it were under VR, it'd be by special permit. Under the R20 zoning, it's allowed by right. That's the biggest difference in the zoning change is special permits for pools versus allowed by right. There are some dimensional changes, but nothing substantial.
Okay, members of the board, anybody have questions?
I mean, how long does the freeze plan last, Leslie? 3 years?
8, excuse me, 8 years.
8, okay.
It's 8 years from the date the board endorses the plan.
Okay, so Dan, you'll be coming back with a, next month?
We might come back with a definitive. I'll know in the next few months which direction the owners are going to go with this thing.
Yeah.
We might be back with a definitive plan, or we might just stick with the A&R plan that was endorsed in May.
Okay.
In the interest of time, Madam Chair, I don't see anything that stands out with this preliminary plan, and I don't think we should spend that much time on it, especially if it's really used as a freeze for the zoning. It might change. Or
just going to ask John if we have to hold the hearing on this or not.
No, there's no public hearing for the preliminary plan.
Mhm.
Go ahead then, John.
No, so unless other board members have any particular issues that they see that they want to address and give any insight to Dan, I just say that we move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a preliminary plan.
Right.
Okay, is there a motion? I take it, John, you're making a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Fritz will second. Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, that's
Good,
good on
thank
that.
you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, now we've got previous plans, the Nantucket Community Sailing number 01-18, 12 West Creek Road. I think we may remember this one.
Yep.
This is Arthur. Arthur, I look for you after town meeting. I'm just going to congratulate you on your citizen mindedness.
Well, thank you. And I thank all the board members on their civic.
Well, and also your dulcet tone, which always makes me as impressed.
Flattery will get you everywhere, as I always say. But
so tell us about community sailing.
as you know, we obtained a special permit for community sailing to have its dormitory as neighborhood housing at West Creek Road, actually fronting on Pleasant Street, and that facility was built. And now we've determined that there can be some, we think, perfectly compatible uses of this facility in the off season. Now, during the pandemic, Nantucket Community Sailing made the facility available to the town for certain emergency workers, and that worked out very well. And we'd like to be able to allow other nonprofit or governmental organizations to be able to make use of it again during the off season. And although it wasn't mentioned in the staff report, we did in our letter request also that certain businesses that were performing services for community sailing be allowed to use it temporarily for their employees as well. The rules that would be applicable to the facility as Nantucket Community Sailing has been using it would continue in force. None of the people using it would be allowed to bring automobiles except expressly permitted by Nantucket Community Sailing, and the management plan as it is in effect would continue to be in effect. Diana Brown of Community Sailing is here on the call with me and would obviously be able to answer any questions or comments that might come up. And that's basically what we're trying to do.
Diana, did you want to speak?
I just wanted to say to the planning board, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say to the planning board that we think that our employee management rules in terms of, specifically in terms of cars and having the employer provide free shuttle bus passes to the residents should be in effect to anyone who's using the dorm. And we don't, certainly we don't need all the parking spaces because our employees don't have cars. I mean, if the most, we'll have a couple of cars there, and everybody else, people thought we were a bike shop because we had so many bicycles on the premise. But we would expect those same rules to be adhered to by anyone that is using the dorm. And I also wanted to emphasize that we do not at all expect or intend to turn this into a wedding factory house or any kind of a short-term rental. That is, our point is very much supporting other nonprofits, government entities, and some of our sponsors who, for example, if coming, during race week, if we've got extra beds available and they can't get a hotel or B&B, we might stick them in the dorm with our sailing instructors. Good for them that they would do it, but something like that anyway.
We really appreciate what you've been doing, particularly through the winter and COVID and everything. Is there a minor modification we're looking at here?
Yes. Specifically to remove the condition that we put in at the time of the original approval, that it be limited solely to Nantucket Community Sailing's employees.
Okay. And how are you going to phrase that now? Are you limiting to a particular number of other nonprofits or any other way that you're limiting it, Arthur?
Well, it wouldn't be a number. Basically, we're not proposing to dole out different rooms in there to different nonprofits or anything like that. The expectation is that there would be an entity that would be taking the whole dormitory, but one at a time. The exception of, as Diana said, we might allow, when Nantucket Community Sailing's people are in there, to have some of the people that were assisting with their activities be able to stay there as well during periods such as race week.
Okay, well, I think we've got a motion here, depending on who wants to make it, about findings, planning staff findings. The proposal doesn't materially affect the findings and conclusions on which the original decision includes modifications are based, and therefore does not require a public hearing. If someone on the board would like to make that
I'd like to make a motion, Madam Chair, to support Arthur's minor modification with the points that he had made, to work with staff to put it into a more legal, appropriate definition. But everything that you've said, I have no issue with, and that would be my motion.
Thank you, Don. Who second was who?
That was me, Madam Chair. Dave.
Dave. Nat.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye. Do we need?
Judith, aye. Okay. Good job, Ms. Brown and Mr. Reed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the board.
Thank you.
Okay, number 02-19 CRH 46 Surfside LLC 46 Surfside Road. This is a minor modification. Paul Santos is going to present it.
Thank you. On behalf of the property owner and applicant CRH Surfside LLC, we respectfully ask the board to issue a minor modification, or at least opine on a minor modification request for the subject property. Property is located at 46 Surfside Road, and a special permit amendment was issued. Permit number 02-19 was approved, and at the time approved 9 parking spaces on the site. 4 were inside of a proposed building and 5 were outside. The building contains 2 contractor shops with 2 2-bedroom apartments above. And within this request, the applicant is seeking approval to locate all the parking outside of the building and to validate an additional 117 square feet of ground cover. The additional ground cover does not add to the parking requirement nor exceed the maximum allowable ground cover in the CN zoning district. So this is an existing MCD project that was modified by the board, and we're simply asking for these what we feel are minor modifications. The plan was reviewed by Ed Pesci. His comments related to some engineering questions that have been addressed, and then there are a few other ones that will be addressed prior to the certificate of occupancy being issued. And we also have recommendation from staff that provided the issues with Mr. Pesci are addressed prior to a certificate of occupancy, that they are in agreement that this could be potentially issued as a minor modification. What we are asking the board to do pursuant to your regulations is in accordance with section 139.11F. We ask the board consider this a minor change that, in quotes, does not materially affect the findings and conclusions upon which the planning board's previous decision to approve the development was based, and therefore shall be allowed without a modification filing. Again, this is a request to have the same number of parking spaces, just take 4 of these spaces that were originally proposed with inside the dwelling or the contractor shops, put them outside, and then add a small amount of ground cover. I will say there was within the staff report, there was a specific request regarding that the applicant clarify what the intended uses for the building are. I believe through the applicant and Sarah, there is an email that was recently sent, and with Sarah's okay, I'll just go ahead and go through this list of what the intended use of the building is. So there is a proposed duplex, which does not change from the original proposal. There was an approved duplex, which is on the site. 2 apartments above the existing shops. 1 contractor shop, which would be office supply and equipment storage, carpet cleaning, and a pool business. And then 1 contractor shop, which is a personal pickup, delivery, washing, drying, pressing, ironing of linens and clothing. It's basically tied to one of the local cleaning businesses. I did meet on site Friday with David Gray and the owners. We will be amending our sewer connection permit to address issues with the addition of some washing machines in the existing building. However, we're of the opinion that this does not qualify as a laundromat. It falls under the contractor shop personal use provisions of the zoning bylaw. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have relative to the minor modification. The other issues, I believe, with regard to both Mr. Pesci and David Gray, we will address outside the scope of, I think, this hearing. And I would like to mention, I believe Sarah is also available. Sarah Alger, the attorney for the applicant, is also available and on this meeting.
Sarah, hello.
Hi.
Congratulations on another successful town meeting.
Thanks. It seems like a million years ago already.
It does. Well, but you handle it with great aplomb. going to ask you to talk about this, but first, the question of, do you want to continue this if there's other discussion with David you want to undertake, or anything about clarification of the laundromat?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a laundromat. I don't think we need to. I think we're set on that piece.
Madam Chair, through you, I have a question.
Yes.
It's not considered a laundromat. I get that, but for the company that's going to be operating it for pressing and washing, et cetera, do we know the size of the company that's going to be doing it? Do they have 100 employees? Do they have 3 employees?
Oh, it's going to be small. It's a small. There are going to be 6 25-pound washing machines, which is kind of like almost a household machine practically. So not 100 employees.
And is that why you say that a laundromat is not allowed in CN zoning, because it's not really a full-blown laundromat? It's kind of a cleaning operation that involves ironing and pressing and things like that?
Right. It will be 3 to 4 employees at the busiest. No public, so it's all pickup and delivery. So there won't be any customers coming to and from. It's just employees. And it's affiliated, it's a different company, but it's affiliated with Pioneer.
John, did you have other questions?
No, I was just wondering also, and maybe staff can help me with this. We did something similar to a private, I don't want to say laundromat because it's not a laundromat. It's private to the company. But we did something similar to this on Old South Road at the end on the right-hand side. And I was just wondering if there were any particular requirements that we asked of that particular applicant that we might consider, Leslie.
Well, a couple of things on the one at Old South Road. I think that was for the White Elephant, and that was, very large scale, a lot of volume, and they came in with a particular request. So we did work with David Gray. I think they have a holding tank, or they're supposed to do the laundry at off-peak times or something like that. I don't have it handy, but I think, right now the applicant's not coming to you to ask for that use. So I think trying to add in conditions is not really appropriate at this stage. I really had asked them to clarify what the use was, because we've been getting a lot of questions about, is it a laundromat or not? And I was hoping that they could just, get that on the record that it isn't. And so I think all we need to really focus on tonight is the parking.
Okay. And so in line with the parking, because it's not necessarily going to be used as a commercial entity and having delivery trucks and things on more of a regular basis, I do have a question, not an issue, but with the other shops, contractor shops, apartments, et cetera, for parking, is there a particular area that is going to be at least not used all the time, at least open for deliveries, such as I guess 17 by 34 area that if they're coming to pick up linens and things, they can pull in and come out, because once once all the parking places take, I just don't want an overflow with the apartments going onto the street or something. I don't know how regularly they're going to be picking up. And it doesn't sound like a lot. Six washing machines doesn't sound like a lot, but trust me, if a load of wash takes half an hour to an hour, not counting a dryer, 6 of those going, you can push out a lot of linens and things. And Pioneer is a pretty decent sized company, and they're not doing this commercially to have people coming and pick up their linens and things. It's only particularly for their clients. But if there's going to be a pretty good regular delivery, if they come in the morning and they come at night, that's one thing. But if they're going to come throughout the day, we just want to make sure that the flow of traffic inside of that because there are multiple units in there. We just want to make sure that it's free of blocking anybody in.
Is there any response to that, or Paul?
I think I defer to Paul on that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Thanks, John. So obviously, there's no requirement for loading zones within the zoning bylaw anymore. And typical to most properties we see here on Nantucket, once things get started and the operation works, everyone kind of adapts to how this would typically work. I would think at the most, any pickup would be a simple van. It's not going to be a big box truck. It'd be a standard van that would fit in a 9x20 parking space. There is ample access to the rear portion of the lot and where the majority of the parking is located. And the shop itself will have, has designated parking. The contractor shop carries with it a designated parking requirement. The apartments carry with it a designated parking requirement. And again, I feel that once they're up and operational, there'll be a system or a format for them to address coming in and goings of that operation. And remember now, the contractor shops are, I believe, also, and I believe that the contractor shops may be tied to the apartments. The duplex is, typically this is mostly employee housing that's in there right now, or proposed to be in there. At least that's what the duplex is now, and that's what the proposal, I believe, is for the shop too.
And Paul, if you see where I'm going, I'm not trying to cause any issues. I'm just looking at the way that that area tapers in. Parking lot number 13 would make a great one if that was designated as the area to be loading, because you're not going to be coming down the middle of those two buildings and parking and waiting for loading, while there might be somebody in the back of the lot with all those other parking places that will be blocked in.
Oh, sure. I mean, we could clearly designate that 13 space as a loading and unloading,
Sure.
I see what you're going at there.
Yeah.
That would be no problem at all. Yep.
Okay, that was my only concern, Judith. Thank you.
And there is the entrance to that unit is right at the 13 also. If you drive by the site, there is that's where the entrance is.
Okay.
And well, there is also the garage. There is the overhead doors that are in that area too, but.
Megan, is that something staff would recommend, or Leslie, to designate a particular unit for the parking?
I think they have ample parking, and unless it becomes a problem, we should let them manage it.
Okay.
Can I just ask, Leslie, do you remember when this was going to be a restaurant and we were talking about the loading zone? And this is pre-COVID, so we didn't have the mews, like the wooden, parking lot turned into a outside dining. But the original plan was to have the truck that was going to, deliver to this establishment before was going to kind of use that front. What's the word I'm looking for? You know what I'm talking about? The front. They deliver there.
We had a license within the right of way when we created a loading zone on Surfside Road.
Right, because it was already used for this. Like the original Crispy Pizza delivers there. I mean, it's not like no one goes there to do the same thing that they were going to do here. But I think Leslie's point was important. Like, we don't know exactly how this is going to sort of flush out. You can easily know how a restaurant works. That's not rocket science. But stuff like this is not the same. You don't really know. It's going to be small vehicles. I don't think this is going to be something that's, 10-wheelers and pup trailers. You know what I'm saying, Paul? So that was my, I just, as far as how this building is positioned versus what was approved before, I'm just curious if the parking and that front is the same as it was. You know what I mean? Like the way it was before they changed the.
Nat, if I may,
project.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that previous plan that we were looking at before with the restaurant kept the building as it was, only to be renovated, and it did not have this building.
Didn't
that
have
took up
that,
all the parking.
okay.
So we're
All
looking
right.
at two different plans with two buildings
Okay.
and a limited amount of space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just that stuff all just came back to me and I'm just.
And
curious,
again, I'm
that's all.
just addressing an issue that potentially could be a problem 5 years from now. And I know what happens, we'll approve something without the forethought to think about that. And then all of a sudden we have traffic blocking and then it becomes a little bit larger than just a private laundromat. I mean, as it's proposed right now, and if it is used as it's proposed with the 6 washing machines, they can work around this. I agree with Leslie, they'll get through it. But if there was any way to keep a lookout for the future in that open space in the front so that you don't park and block that narrow access to all the parking in the back, it's just something to consider now instead of later. But I don't need to put a special, contingency with that. I would just address that for the record so that we think about it.
Oh, I just wanted to confirm too, you're going to talk further to David Gray, or you feel like there's no need to talk with David?
Oh, no, we'll constantly be in David was in the site, was in the building on Friday. It was plumbed with the appropriate setup for his office. We will amend the sewer connection permit with his office. So yeah, I'm constantly in contact with David. So we'll be dealing with him. And in fact, we've actually left the new sewer line. For those of you who are in this area and have been dealing with the sewer work that goes on at night over here now, there's a new 15-inch sewer line that runs in Surfside Road. We actually left a separate connection for this building as part of that sewer project, which that project won't be back online for about another year now. But this building will ultimately be tied into that new sewer line. So we've worked with the sewer department. As always, they've cooperated with everything that we've asked, and like they always do. So we'll be in constant contact with David.
Okay, Sarah, is there anything further you need?
No, I think we've covered it.
So you're a medievalist too.
Yes. I have many interests.
You do. Okay, folks who are here for the hearing, if there's anybody who'd like to speak at this point, now's the time to do that. I have one hand up and it is.
Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, we're not gonna recognize members of the public because this is just a minor mod.
Okay. Who is that though?
It was Barbara Condon.
Okay. Ms. Condon, this is just a minor modification. It's not a formal hearing. So just so you're aware of that. I think we're in the mood then for a motion.
I'll make the motion, Madam Chair, to approve for minor modification, and that if the board sees fit that it's determined to qualify as minor modification, that the proposal does not materially affect the findings and conclusions of which the original decision and subsequent modifications were based, and therefore does not require a public hearing.
Okay, Nat.
I second that.
Okay, Dave.
Can we just make sure that Ed Pecci's concerns are just addressed? I mean, through staff, whatever, but can we just make sure that happens in that motion?
Sure, I'll revise that to include Dave's comments that Ed Pecci review the modification and address the concerns that he had initially made.
Megan, is there anything else on that front you wanted to raise?
No, I think that's good. And I think, with Ed's concerns, that'll all be tied to the CO. So I think it would be advantageous for the applicant to work with him before that process. They're not going to get the CO until everything's complete.
Okay. Fritz, are you in favor of this?
Yeah, I'd vote yes if we've had a motion in a second.
Yeah. I think John has the motion now. We had a second.
Yeah.
Nat, had a second. Dave
Aye.
spoke, and up to you, Dave and Fritz.
Aye.
Dave said, okay, if it's approved by Ed and Fritz, you
Yeah.
agree with that.
I vote yes.
Okay, I vote yes too. So that takes care of that one. Sarah and Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, now we have Shore Road subdivision. Brian Swain is handling this, 2 Francis Street. This is a Form J. Sarah, this is yours too, I guess.
Oh, this one's, I brought Brian Swain over. The next 2 are his, but just in case you guys have questions, but they are both very simple requests. The first one for 2 Francis Street, it was that small 2-lot subdivision that was approved.
Right.
It's just for the release of the second and final lot. Ed has been working with Art Gasparo to complete a punch list of items. They're relatively minor in nature, so my recommendation would be to go ahead and endorse that Form J and let the applicant sort it out with Ed, whether they want to complete it or put up an escrow. And we can hold it in the office until one or the other or both is done.
And does this have to be hearing?
No hearing.
No.
No.
Okay. Brian, do you want to tell us anything?
It was a great representation, Megan. So if you guys have additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But the majority of everything's been done.
All right. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to endorse the Form J, the condition the staff hold it until the remaining minor modification punch list has been completed or the applicant supplies escrow funding.
I'll
Thank
second Fritz's motion.
Okay, and Nat and Dave?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of that one. Sconset hydrangeas cluster residential homes special permit and subdivision updated legal documents. Brian, this one's yours also.
That's right. This one was a merger of 2 lots that were conforming at one point. It was heard at the January 13th, 2020 planning board hearing. 1 and 3 hydrangea were merged into 1 lot. The board approved and endorsed that decision. It was recorded. And the legal documents before you for approval are updated declaration of trust documents that are housekeeping to reflect the newly merged lot.
This is a rarity. It's nice. They made 2 lots and made it into 1, took 2 curb cuts, made it into 1 curb cut. Unless I'm not seeing something, this is a pretty good one. We approved it in theory at the last one. What we're doing is endorsing it. So I don't have an issue with this. Does anybody?
Unusual, but they're gonna get some ground cover out of it.
Yeah.
I remember
I would move approval and endorsement of the changes in the documents.
Thank you, Fritz. Is there a
I'll
second?
second Fritz.
That was John, I believe. David and Nat.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye as well. Is this one we need a hearing on, Megan?
No, just
The permit modification. Okay. Okay, Brian, good work.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good evening.
Okay, this next set, this is part of the whole area over by Sandpiper and Meadows and things like that, right, Megan? So 813 Meadows, 2 definitive subdivision, 5416 Sandpiper Place, 2 North special permit workforce housing. home ownership, and then 40-16 Meadows 2 workforce rental special permit request for minor modification. These are public hearings.
So these three are not public hearings. However, my recommendation is to wait until there's a public hearing for the Sandpiper 2 subdivision, and these minor modifications are tied to the request to that public hearing. So we have to do the public hearing before we get to these. So that's why I suggest moving them farther down the agenda so we can get to that first. So we'll get to it. Just we gotta.
So that's why you have it, the Vino one next in the, in the agenda. Okay.
All right. Ultimately, though, it'll be a hearing, so there'll be an opportunity to speak. This is next one, PLSP 2021-05-130, Michael Jano, 3 Korea Lane.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was noticed on this, so I should probably recuse.
Okay,
As the crow flies, Dave, you're kind of far away from this one.
One lot away. I know.
I thought you were further than that.
All right, so
how about Stephen? We haven't seen you for a while. Would you do the honors?
Be my pleasure, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right, Megan, do you want to talk us through this one? Ms. Condon?
We do have Ms. Condon here for any questions you may have. The application before you is a special permit request for a secondary residential lot, otherwise known as a covenant lot. It's pretty straightforward. The covenant lot will have approximately 20,000 square feet, while the market rate lot will retain just under 30,000 square feet. They will both be accessed from Korea Lane, which is a private unpaved roadway. I would consider it now of sufficient width and suitable grade. I did an inspection there just recently. The roadway has recently been graded. It's in good condition. This is located within the Lug 1 zoning district, and the applicant is requesting that both lots have separate access. I can go ahead and pull up a site plan. You give me just a moment. If you have any questions while I do so, Ms. Condon is on the Zoom, and this is a public hearing.
Yeah, I misunderstood before when I raised my hand to speak, but
Well,
it's been
Good to
fascinating.
have you with us. Thank you very much.
And this one too, after you vote for the public hearing for the special permit, it is being followed up with the A&R plan to implement that special permit. So it'll be a two-part vote.
Okay, do you want to talk to us about it, or does Ms. Condon? So
I'll
Megan,
just say that it's kind of refreshing to see a covenant lot with almost a half an acre. We generally don't see that. We see covenant lots kind of really just picked out on a 10,000 square foot lot to be 4,000 square feet. We see a lot of those. So this is a really nice size covenant lot that you're going to have a decent structure here for a family really to spread out a little bit. And I just love it.
Yep, agreed.
Can I also say that the main reason that we're putting this special permit forward, and grateful to the covenant program to be able to do this, is we want to, for a nominal fee, sell it to our daughter and her husband who have year-round jobs here. So we're just trying to help them out. And
that's great. What did they do, Barbara?
Georgie is a independent photographer, and Chris, her husband, works at the high school as a Latin teacher.
That's great. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. You heard the discussion. This is a large size covenant lot. We've got other planning staff recommendations and findings that we need to make. But first, let me invite anybody who's in the public that wants to speak to this matter, and then we'll go back over all that.
Nope.
I'm not seeing anybody.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you,
Second.
John. John moves and Nat seconds to close the public hearing. John,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave is recused, Fritz
Aye.
and Judith, aye, and Stephen,
Aye.
okay. So
And on
we're
the
set-
motion, I'll, Meg, could I make the same motion for both, or do I have to take them one by one?
No, you can just say with the staff findings and recommended.
Yes.
It's fine.
So I'll make a motion to approve with the the three findings and also the 5 staff recommendations.
Thank you.
And do I also include the A&R in that as well, or just?
That'll be a separate vote, and then
Okay,
the vote will just be the 4.
great. I'll do that, my first motion.
Second.
You'll do that. That's your first motion, John?
Yeah, my first one, and then we'll go back to the A&R. So my first
Oh, okay.
motion was to approve with the 3
Right.
findings and also the 5 staff recommendations.
Thank you. Did anybody have questions about that? Stephen, Fritz, Nat?
I have
Oh,
no
All
concerns.
good. This is what
It's
we
wonderful.
want.
Okay, then let's go ahead and do a vote on that if that's in order. John,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Stephen,
That's an emphatic aye.
okay, Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Thank you. So now John and A&R.
Yeah, and I'll make a motion to approve the A&R, to be correct.
Second.
John moved and Nat seconded. Let's do the roll call. John,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Stephen.
I don't think I vote on these ones, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Fritz,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
aye. Judith, aye. You're right, Stephen. Thank you. Okay, congratulations to everybody concerned. That's exciting.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you,
Uh,
everybody, for your support.
Well, I have to tell you, having a Latin teacher in the family is a great thing. And having you said a photographer too, so that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay,
Does this mean that I can leave, or do I need to stay?
I think it means you can leave
All
unless you want to.
Thanks, everybody.
Only if you want to.
No, it has been fascinating, but I'll let you get on with your business. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
PLSP 2021-05-132, Daniel D. and Chandra Bartlett, 41 Bartlett Farm Road. Ms. Hanley.
Good evening.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm fine. Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm here on behalf of Daniel and Shonda Bartlett, and they have applied for a special permit for a secondary residential lot for their property at 41 Bartlett Farm Road. They propose the covenant lot will be 32,000 square feet, and then the remaining lot, which is long and narrow to the rear, will is where Shonda and Dan's house is, and that will stay the same. We would also ask that you waive by special permit the ground coverage requirement so that more ground coverage could go over to the covenant lot, the secondary residential lot. The Bartlett's have a son they're planning to transfer this property to, and he's moving a house on, and given the size of the house and where it needs to be located, they will need some extra ground cover on the residential lot. But between the two lots, the total ground cover would not exceed what's allowed under zoning. One other thing I point out, I sent over a revised plan to show the 20-foot access area on the northerly side of the lot. We were originally thinking about doing on the southerly side, but because of septic placement, et cetera, and the fact that it makes sense to take advantage of the existing driveway, that's where the access will be.
Thank you. Let's see, is there anybody who needs to recuse from members of the board? Okay, Megan, do you want to give us anything about the staff recommendations?
No, I would just say I included just the standard findings and recommended conditions with this one, noting, as Ms. Hanley has noted, that the ground cover between the two still wouldn't exceed 4%. This one is another great example of an oversized covenant lot, 32,000 square feet, where they are allowed a bit of a reduction. So I think this also achieves that same goal as the last covenant lot that you just saw.
And both lots are to have separate driveway access, but from what Ms. Hanley said, there's just one driveway, right? Okay.
Yeah, this one just has the one driveway access.
Thank you. And are we going to do an A&R after?
Yes.
Okay.
But not today. We will submit an A&R after the decision's been rendered.
Okay, sounds good.
So just for commenting, I'd say this is another one of those pretty good feel-good ones. You're keeping with the 4% ground cover that's allowed right now. You're giving a 32,000 oversized covenant lot, and you're recycling a house to make fit according to the zoning. So if we make that change, so I see win-win-win.
Do you want to make a motion on that, John?
Do we have to close a public hearing on this? So I think, Meg,
right.
unless there's someone out there commenting.
Ms. Hanley, is there anybody else? Any hands up? No, I think we can close it.
I'll make a motion first to close public hearing, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Nat seconded. Let's roll call. John,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye.
And I'll make a motion to approve with the findings, the one finding, and also the 5 staff recommendations.
Thank you, John.
Second. Dave seconded. Judith.
Dave seconded. Thank you. Roll call. John,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, I think we're set, and you'll come back for an A&R when you're ready, Ms. Hanley.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the Bartletts. They do so many good things for the community. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, they're excited about doing this for their child, so that's great.
Well, and to save a house is a good thing too. Okay, this is Sarah Alger coming up, PLSP 2021 dash 05-0133 Ackenbach LLC, 33 Quidnet Road.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application to have a driveway with a less than required width. There are significant wetlands and endangered plants on this property, and they've been through both the Conservation Commission and the NHESP process, and have gotten permission to put in a driveway which is 8 feet wide as opposed to the required 10 with a clearing of 12. This driveway is, we would like to be a primary access, but retain the existing access as a secondary access. That access is a 15-foot wide easement that comes over adjacent property. And we would retain that so that in case of emergencies or delivery trucks, et cetera, they would be able still to come in as they do now. But our primary access would be solely within our property, coming off the Quidnet Road, looping through those wetlands and around those endangered plants.
Great. Let's see. Does anybody need to recuse on this one? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. So you have an opportunity to comment. I see Christian Anderson. I don't know if you're my neighbor, Christian Anderson. If you are, greetings and hope you're doing well. And Teresa and your mom. But if you're not, you're still welcome. Okay, anybody else? I see one hand up. Christian Anderson, there you are.
Yeah, we're here.
Hey, good job.
How you doing? I'm trying to figure this out.
Oh, well, we're glad to see you and see what you're up to. We
Not much.
missed you guys. So this makes sense. You're protecting the environmental interests there and trying to reduce how much driveway there is.
Well, yeah, I'd like to reduce the driveway, the easement. We're all for the new curb cut. That's great. But, you know, we don't see the purpose of leaving the other one, the easement there. I mean, delivery vehicles can get by on an 8-foot road. There's open space. There's no obstructions. I don't see why they can't have just that primary access.
Sarah, do you want to speak to that?
Well, the concern, of course, is fire and emergency vehicles as well. And other people will continue to use the easement. So it doesn't seem as access.
But the other people would be us.
Yes.
Right, yeah, that's, if we use our easement, that's one thing, but I don't see why, I mean, a delivery truck or a fire truck or any emergency vehicle aren't going to be wider than 8 feet anyway, so that's why I don't understand, I guess.
It's open.
It's just, yeah, open land, there's nothing there.
Yeah, as long as there's nothing beyond the traveled track, any vehicle will fit technically.
Correct.
Right. So
I think that the older road that's behind there probably has been a fire road or a means of assuring emergency access in the past.
There was the access to Teresa's parents. They used to be at 33. Right. And now that they're gone and she's selling, you know, we really would like to see that disappear. And I don't, like I said, I don't see why they can't just get a new driveway like they want, which they want, and we're all for that.
And the neighbor next door has split his property on the other side of my sister Tina into 2 lots. So I don't understand why that driveway couldn't just be the main access.
Sarah, would you like to speak to that?
Well, I I think the planning board has the rule of a 10 feet and a maximum, open to
Yeah.
a minimum of 12 feet. We're not going to be able to achieve that. Because of
Sarah, you're referring to the standard requirement that staff requires. Is that what you're referring to?
Required under the
You know,
bylaw.
like with the,
It's required under 139 20.1.
yeah. Leslie, what's your take on this? I mean, this is, we have the right to change, make a change for somebody in a specific situation, correct?
Yes, so that's why she's applying for the special permit for you to reduce the driveway width from 10 feet to 8 feet. And I think in this particular case, there are wetlands and other things in play. They've received approval from the Conservation Commission. And, I don't see any issues with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Madam Chair, through you, may I
Yes.
address
John.
Leslie? Leslie, so my understanding is if Concom gave it permission and we give it permission for the curb cut under the 8 feet, less than the 10, we're actually making it, everyone's agreeing with it. So we really don't need to keep the other access and easement in place. If it was a fire department concern, then they would say so in the beginning, and then maybe we wouldn't consider the new curb cut in the driveway. We just leave the easement as it is, going access to the back of the house there. So to me, it just looks like you have your cake and eat it too, or you take one or the other. You've gained the access, you've gained the curb cut, you've gained the approval from the Concom for the reduced width of the driveway. So take it and then let your neighbor not worry about that easement going all the way into the back of the property with that road all the way accessing the back. That's how I see it. Is any thought about that?
Dave.
A couple questions. Did the Comcom ask them to reduce the width of the road? Is this?
Yeah, that was the biggest width they could get.
Was 8 feet.
Yeah, they would have done a full-on road driveway if they could have.
And so is the structure of the road going through those wetlands going to be good enough to support the traffic if a fire engine or a large delivery truck needed to get through there, or would it? I think that's the question.
That's of course the concern.
Yeah.
And the driveway, of course, won't be constructed for a while, so we'll be using the easement for quite a long time. This easement isn't going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I completely understand Mr. Christians. I'm sorry, I forget the name. Anderson. I completely understand. I wouldn't want my neighbor driving right by my house with delivery trucks and such. But if the road cannot be built wide enough, or it can't be built well enough to support that traffic, maybe there's some understanding you can come to with your new neighbor about, about the ability to still use the easement under emergency circumstances or something. I'd be concerned about the quality of that road and the accessibility to that house if something large had to get in there.
Yeah, to be honest, my client's preference is to have all of his access, everything through that new road. He's not interested in having a bifurcated driveway system, but we have to keep the easement, at least in the short term, till all the construction is done. And then I guess we'll see what the road is like. And hopefully it will be sufficient. We can give up that easement, but I don't want to do that prematurely. That's been the only access to this property up until now, is that easement.
So Sarah, would you be willing to say, to put that kind of a constraint on it, that it'll be effective until the property is built out?
And well, I guess the concern I have is what if this road that we put in isn't gonna, what if we find out it's not satisfactory for fire passage?
It will be, as long as there's no trees and or posts, or think of it like, Sarah, think of it like,
Well,
wall when it,
we won't
you know,
put in
this-
any posts.
no, of course, I'm just, people don't realize 8 feet is actually the width of a full semi flatbed, okay? Actually, it's 102 inches, 8 feet is 96. It's 8 feet is bigger than you think, in the sense of, like, you know, a vehicle, a pickup. A fire truck is like the size of a, you know, a tractor trailer width, you know, but it's more of the body of the vehicle than the wheels. The wheels aren't sticking out that far. It's the actual shell of the vehicle. So as the gentleman earlier said, Mr. Anderson said, there's not going to be any trees around and things that it can hit, as long as the road is flat, not dug in so that there's like edges, you know what I mean? Like where the sides of the road are up higher than the traveled way, you'd be fine. I mean, I don't see an issue with this. It's confusing because it seems like I don't really know what everybody wants. I'm kind of losing my train of understanding, but I think what you're asking for is, so we have to revisit this after the project is done, Sarah, and eliminate the easement later. Is that gonna kind of be the plan? Sorry, Leslie, didn't mean to talk over your hand. Sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
She's gonna fix it right now.
I don't know about that, but I feel like the discussion's gotten a little bit off track. I mean, the easement is in place. They're entitled to continue using the easement. It's a private agreement between, you know, the property owners. It's recorded at the registry. The easement's already there. What's really in front of you to discuss is the new driveway and the width of
Right.
that. And that's it. I think the easement's sort of distracting everybody.
Yep. Got it. I have no problem with it, you know, so.
And Leslie and Megan, is the reason for that there was some prior agreement in terms of the easement being limited to 8 feet and going before the Concom?
So the easement isn't the 8 feet is not related to the easement. The 8 feet is the width of the new proposed driveway. So right now, this property doesn't have its own designated driveway.
Okay.
Right.
Because the way that road works, just so everybody's aware of it, is it's a fairly narrow road. There's a lot of bicyclists on it. There's paint, other things like that that sometimes take place in that area. But on the other hand, there's also the old milk route. There's the old emergency roads that go through there. So Leslie, you're basically saying that you think there's not a problem because there's been a prior agreement about the second driveway or the first driveway.
So the driveway that they use now is via an easement over the abutting property. And that's really not part of the relief that they're requesting. What they want to do now is create their own driveway on their property, which isn't a second driveway, it's the first driveway. And they want to reduce the width from the required 10 feet down to 8 because of the environmental conditions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Fritz.
So just a question. So this is a special permit for secondary driveway access. Can we,
No.
add a condition?
I think it's just one driveway.
No, the application to validate a second driveway access.
Yeah, the application had two components to it.
Okay,
One
thank you.
was to allow the reduction in width of a driveway from 10 feet to 8 feet. And the other was to the extent that the easement is considered a first driveway access, this new driveway would be a second driveway access. If you don't consider the easement as a driveway access, then we don't need the second driveway special permit. We only need the special permit to reduce the width of the driveway.
And Madam Chair, just to
Yes.
go a little further with that, the number of driveways is only the number of driveways exiting your lot onto the public road. So the fact that you can cross someone else's property and share a driveway, that doesn't count towards one of your driveway accesses under the zoning bylaw. The driveway has to be on your lot. So, she doesn't need the relief for a second driveway.
Okay, so the only relief I need is the width
Yes.
relief. Okay.
And
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
again, sir, the only reason you need the width is because Concom said 8 feet, correct?
Concom and NHESP, the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species
So
Program.
not their choice here. If they want a driveway, that has to be 8 feet, period.
Yeah, they're not choosing to have an 8-foot wide driveway. They're being told the widest driveway you can have is 8 feet.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just want to make sure that that's understood, that it's not a choice.
okay. Are there further comments from members of the public?
No, I'll make a motion to close. Is it public hearing?
Second,
Okay, Nat moves and Dave seconds, closing the public hearing. John,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, I. Okay, what's your pleasure?
aye.
John, you wanna,
Megan's got something.
Go ahead, man.
Sure, everyone got my email from this morning, just updating the recommended findings. I accidentally included the wrong, I accidentally included on-site turnaround, which is not what the ask for is here. It's for the width. So just that minor language change I did send to everyone for the finding.
okay.
And don't we need to modify now the findings to eliminate the requests for the second driveway access?
Yes. So it would just be for the width.
Sounds like it's up your alley, Fritz.
I don't have the language in front of me of what she said this morning, but I would make a motion to approve the special permit to reduce the traveled surface area from 10 to 8 feet. With the following findings. Just so I can go through, so we don't need number 1.
So you do need all three. The language is just going to be changed so that the request for a waiver of the width of the traveled surface is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw, is not contrary to sound traffic and safety considerations, and will not have an adverse impact on the scenic or historic integrity of the neighborhood.
Right, and no reference to secondary driveway access. Okay, subject to the findings that we just heard.
Thank you, Fritz. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Did we close the hearing yet?
Yes, I believe we did.
Yes.
We did.
Okay. Then the motion is by Fritz, seconded by Nat. We'll do roll call. Fritz,
Hi,
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
John,
I'm going to vote in the negative.
okay. Judith, aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Tell us, is that the Bayou Tapestry or what tapestry is that?
Oh, gosh, you would ask. I can't remember. It's something I got from a museum in Los Angeles, I think.
Well,
So-
it's good if you ever take up needlepoint to go with your annual meeting, you're all set.
I'm all set. I'll remember it as soon as I leave this meeting. I'll text it to you or something.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. We now have several instances from Richmond Great Point Development, PL SUB 2021-05-163. Dave Armani. Then we have PL SUB 2021-05-164, Sandpiper 2 North. And then we've got some previous plans, Meadows 2, Sandpiper 2, workhouse permit, special permit workforce homeownership, and previous plan that is a non-public hearing number 4016 Meadows 2. So Megan, you wanted to take us through this, I think, or Dave Armani's around.
I can hand it over to Dave. I think just as a point of clarity, taking things separately, Old South Crossing first, it doesn't have anything to do with the subsequent previous plan minor modification request that is tied to the second public hearing of Sandpiper Place 2. So there's a lot of moving parts going on here, but I put
Yeah.
Old South Crossing first because it really has nothing to do with the subsequent core items.
Okay, it says no new buildable lots, no new waivers. And are there any other things you say you approve the request as proposed? Anything else you want to tell us, Megan? Okay. Dave, are you there? You want to bring him over?
He's on, I see him.
He's muted.
Dave, you're muted. We can't hear you.
All right, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board, members of the staff. Good to be before you again this evening. This first item, as Megan indicated, is probably the simplest of the ones before you this evening from our portfolio, although they all actually are simpler in action than they appear on the agenda. But I do want to reiterate my offer to Leslie and Megan for a free bottle of Advil for all the complicated moving parts here. But at the end of the night, when you go to take action on this, I think it'll be fairly simple. The first item, the Old South Road Crossing Subdivision modification, minor modification, is the culmination of about 5 years of collective effort between ourselves and the town and the land court. It feels like it was so long ago that Mason and Dixon should have been our surveyor instead of Hayes Engineering, but that's the way it goes with some of these land court items that are registered land, as everyone knows. This one is kind of the middle front of our site that is between the developed portion of the portfolio now and Old South Road behind our smaller retail buildings. And I'm sure, Megan, you have the plans if we need to reference those. But this first item is essentially erasing abandoning, eliminating, whatever phrase we want to use, the former kind of quirky S-curve of Nancy Ann Lane that passed through the front of what most of the board members, if not all, will remember as the Parcel Plus store. So this is essentially just a roadway reconfiguration, replacing the old road system that was done during the 16514 subdivision back in the 90s that Mr. Glowacki put in place, and replacing it with the roadway system to incorporate and facilitate the development of our new development and new portfolio. So essentially straightening the quirky curve that was Nancy Ann Lane that's shown in the yellow and the red, which was replaced by the straight Ironwood Road just to the bottom that Megan is pointing out here. So that portion of road has not been used already for several years. This is, just a technical matter where, because of the nature of how we chose to do this through the land court, through a friendly taking, as opposed to another manner, it had to go through the land court a couple of different times. And as the board is aware, and the staff is painfully aware, between COVID and the retirement of the former chief title examiner at the land court, Ed Williams, who was intimately familiar with our actions and portfolio, there was a new chief title examiner who was appointed. She's very competent. She understands what we're trying to do. Her name is Christina Gainey, but she was coming into this totally fresh, had no background, no prior understanding of what we were trying to do. And she's trying to get up to speed during COVID, working remotely. So the logistics were a little tricky. It took even longer than we had hoped, but we're now at the finish line where the town taking process has been completed. So the town friendly taking of Nancy Ann Lane to clear the title and then essentially turn right around and flip it back to us has been completed. That former roadway segment now has a land court lot number, and all we need is to essentially reapprove this subdivision that was approved but was kind of in suspended animation, subject to the land court finalizing all these actions. So as you noted, Madam Chair, there are no new lots. There's no change to the development. This entire area is ostensibly vacant with the exception of the former Parcel Plus building, which is kind of in a state of disrepair, pending our demolishing it here in the near future. So this is just reconfiguring the roadway system to allow for the straight road of Ironwood Road to take over as the main access to our entire development portfolio, and eliminating the Nancy Ann Lane Road legally on paper. So no change to the number of lots, no change to the development, no change to the access pattern that the board has already seen dozens of times and approved back in 2017. This is just strictly a technical matter to give us the final piece of paper to go back to the land court and get this done. I would be remiss, in addition to thanking the staff for their ongoing oversight on this and assistance. Attorney Reed was incredibly helpful, as he oftentimes is here, helping us in his role as the sage of most of these land court matters. And then Attorney Giorgio and Attorney Marsh from Town Council's office were also very helpful and very diligent in keeping at this and helping us get through the maze to the finish line here, so to speak. So unless there's questions, I think this one's fairly straightforward, even though on paper it looks complicated. And we'll be able to move on to the next one, which is a bit more substantive. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board, do you have questions? Then, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start the public hearing. You heard Mr. Arminetti discuss kind of the history at hand here. So here's the chance if you wanted to comment. Okay, members of the board, anybody want to close the hearing?
Motion to close.
Second.
Second. That was Fritz, Judith.
Yes, John and Fritz, Dave. Dave, are you there?
Aye. Sorry.
Nat?
Stuck on the beach. Aye.
Okay, Judith, aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Fritz seconds. Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith. Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, so that's the first one down. Want to go for number 2 here, Megan? Sandpiper Place 2 North. Dave, your turn again.
Okay, I'll defer to Megan if she wants to say anything opening. Otherwise, I'm glad to move on. Anything, Megan?
Oh, all you, Dave.
All right, Madam Chair, through you, thank you again. This item is fairly similar to the first one, but does have a related, but somewhat different subject item related to the duplex parking spaces for some of these residential lots. So I guess I'd like to, with your permission, Madam Chair, kind of take them separately in terms of explanation, even though I think there's really only going to be one action here, if I could.
Sounds good.
So the first part of this is almost exactly similar to the first action that the board just took. This is a reconfiguration of some of the former roadway systems in the northern half of our Sandpiper subdivision, which we call Sandpiper 2, the right-hand side or the northern half of our house lot subdivision. This is the 52 lot portion, which includes 3 of the lots that are being exchanged with Housing Nantucket, which on the plan that Megan has put up are lots 2, 3, and 4. Those lots are adjacent to the Housing Nantucket campus and will be conveyed to them once we get through the land court process here. So the subdivision in total is outlined in green, along with one of our Meadows 2 apartment lots, which is the one shown at the top of the page as 959A. So again, this was a process that was started back in 2016-17 in essentially unpacking or unwinding the former subdivision that Mr. Glowacki had processed and approved but never built out, which was our portion, if you will, of the Cedar Crest 3 subdivision. Everything below the green line on Mayflower and Daffodil was conveyed out and built by third parties. Everything to the north of that green line is part of our property that we acquired from Mr. Glowacki back in 2013. And as part of our planning, which started with ourselves and the staff and the abutters, evolved to the input that we got from your board and some of the other town boards, it was decided that the most logical subdivision here would be to terminate the stubs in the cul-de-sacs for the former Mayflower Circle and former Daffodil Lane, shown in yellow and red that Megan's pointing out, and essentially create a firewall between our subdivision and the remainder of the Cedar Crest 3 subdivision to the east towards the airport, and turn everything in our subdivision to the west towards Ironwood Road and Lover's Lane, and have it all served internally by a roadway system that would only exit and enter onto Old South Road and would not have any cut-throughs or access back into Evergreen Way or Cedar Crest. I'm sure the members of the board recall with great favor some of the negotiations and discussions during the hearings about the cut-through roads or no cut-through roads. Obviously, this direction was chosen by the town, by us, and by the staff to eliminate those concerns. But in order to do that, we had to eliminate legally the balance of these roadway segments. And we again chose to go through the friendly eminent domain process with the town council, with your board, and with the select board. So those applications went forward concurrently, but again, it took a fair amount of time. It's the 2 cul-de-sac stubs, and then further to the west, to the right, next to the Housing Nantucket lots, that 40-foot wide way that kind of extended into the development envelope previously, which we had no need for. We also had to abandon that to get clear title to that. So those processes went forward simultaneously through the taking process, through the land court. The town has now completed the friendly taking. The land court has now issued land court lots for those 3 pieces of property. And we can now drop down our final subdivision and create the 52 lots that are shown on our plan. Again, no change in lots as was previously approved by your board back in January of 2017. This subdivision still has 52 total buildable lots, 3 of which go to Housing Nantucket, 48 of which stay with us, 12 of which are developed as AMI restricted lots and the balance as market rate lots. So we're not looking for any change in the lot configuration, sizes, number of lots, no change to the bedroom total that was agreed to as part of our approvals that your board issued back in 2017. This is just engineering on paper for that portion. So the roadway segments in the yellow and red magically disappear. The land court accepts this subdivision if your board approves it, and these become the legal lots that we can then move forward and convey. And subject to getting your approval and final land court approval, we would anticipate the road, utility, and landscaping infrastructure in this portion of the subdivision to start pretty quickly this summer and be completed before the Thanksgiving holiday. And then we'll start to convey these lots out to buyers and start to build some of the AMI restricted homes in this portion of the subdivision. So that's the first half. Might be better, Madam Chair, to discuss any questions on that component, and then I can speak to the duplex parking spaces between the Beachgrass Road lots and our Meadows 2 apartment lots, which is essentially a separate but related matter under this application.
Thank you, Dave. Board members, questions on this?
Madam Chair, I guess I have a staff question. So as I'm reading this, no fewer than 3 times do I see the complete outline, and it says without holding a public meeting. And also there was a paragraph that said we would need to do a special permit, but that would require that to be a public meeting. So what are we voting on or looking at right now? Do we have the ability to vote without a public meeting?
So this is a 4-step application. The first step is what Dave's going over right now, part 1 of 2 of the first step. It's a modification to the Sandpiper Place 2 subdivision. That is a public hearing. It requires, we noticed it. If the public want to provide input, that's fine. The second 3 previous plans that will take place after this discussion are only meant to reflect the changes made to the Sandpiper Place 2 subdivision and the other related permits. So it's more of a paper trail, technical language changes. There's not any substantive changes being made to those permits, but there are language changes and paper tracking, if you will, that will need to take place to reflect the land change, which Dave will get to in the next part of his explanation. But this
Okay.
component of it is a public hearing.
Okay, so we're going to open it up to the public for this, just this
Right.
matter with the explanation Dave just gave.
And with the second explanation he's about to give.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a public hearing. You heard Dave Armanetti explaining why we're doing it this way. It's really a technical matter. If anybody has comments they'd like to share, this is the time. You can raise your hand. If not, John, we can close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Dave still has another part he has
Oh,
to.
sorry,
It's tied.
premature. Yeah,
So you're saying don't close it until we get to the last part?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's one more part that Dave will explain in regards to lot line changes for these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots right here. So that's a part of the same public hearing ask. Dave, do you want to explain or do you want me to keep going?
and
How
I'll
about
withdraw my
Dave?
motion.
Go ahead. Dave, you ready?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, again, we do appreciate the patience of the board and the staff. We we spent quite a bit of time, I can tell you, between ourselves and the staff, kind of brainstorming on how to make this simpler. And believe it or not, we think we actually made it simpler than it otherwise would have been. But we do apologize. It's a lot of paper and a lot of moving parts just to do some very technical kind of fine tuning. So this next component is within the Sandpiper 2 subdivision. So technically it would be a change to that subdivision. And it would also be a minor change to the adjacent Meadows 2 apartment subdivision. That triangular lot that you see above the yellow highlighted areas is one lot of our Meadows 2 apartments project that will ultimately be the site of 24 apartment units in 3 buildings that is actually commencing construction as we speak, and is part of the effort that I know the board is aware of, where we collaborated with the town and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to extend the town's safe harbor under Chapter 40B for an additional year. Just as a coincidence, that happens to be the parcel that is achieving that. So what happened when we got our original approvals of Sandpiper 2, we were permitted a total of 8 duplex lots. Originally, there was a condition in your special permit where those lots had to be dispersed a bit more through the subdivision. And then after thinking it through, and after the roads were put in, and after the apartments started construction, we brainstormed a bit with the staff and thought that it might be better to cluster the duplexes a little bit on the west side of Beachgrass Road, or the town side of Beachgrass Road, to provide more of a density buffer or transitioning of density from the apartments to the single family lots on the east side, or the airport side of Beachgrass Road. So we got that approval from your board a couple of years ago that allowed us to cluster the duplexes, in this case between lot 61 to the left or the south, and lot 66 to the right or the north towards Old South Road. What that did, though, is create a little bit of a 10-pound flour in an 8-pound bag situation, where, because these are all going to be 3-bedroom duplexes with 6 bedrooms in each structure, you need 1 parking space per bedroom to meet the code. Plus we have some additional visitor and guest parking on Beachgrass Road and the other adjacent roads. But were we to meet the technical requirement in the bylaw to have all the parking for all these duplexes adjacent to each other, all on the lot upon which the house is constructed, we would have a run of 24 to 36 parking spaces all in a row with very little landscaping, and it would be pretty densely packed together. This is a similar action that we explained and that the board approved back in March, in your April meeting for our Sandpiper 1 subdivision to the south. So we're proposing a similar solution here to spread out the duplex parking a little bit more, make it aesthetically a little more pleasing, and to allow for some more landscaping in the back of these homes. And fortunately, we have plenty of excess land for this Meadows 2 apartment lot. The driving principle behind this, not to digress too much, but the board will recall between your board and the staff that we really wanted to continue a sense of streetscape and design along Beachgrass Road, as it's the primary road through the subdivision and is kind of the front door to everything. And the staff and your board were adamant about not allowing front yard parking for any of these lots. So all the parking has to be brought into the rear, and all the access has to be brought into the rear in order to maintain that aesthetic and that design principle, which we fully support. But we have to be able to get to the parking, and then obviously have to have enough parking to meet code. So that's everything that's driving this. We're not looking for more lots. We're not looking for more duplexes. We're not looking for more bedrooms. We're just taking from our own land, giving our single family subdivision a tiny bit more land from our apartment subdivision in order to accommodate this off-site but adjacent parking. And we're talking about a very tiny amount of land here, 3,200 square feet in the aggregate, to accommodate a couple handfuls of parking spaces. And the staff has looked at this very closely with us, and I believe agrees that this is the best solution. We went back and forth a little bit in terms of where these spaces would be located exactly relative to the open space that's going to be part of this apartment lot. And I will say that Leslie and Megan spent quite a bit of time on that with us, which we appreciate. And I think we've got to a solution that is best case scenario. So that's what's driving this portion of the subdivision change. Again, no change to the number of lots, no change to the number of units, no change to the number of bedrooms, no traffic or sewer or utility changes, just moving a couple of parking spaces around on the checkerboard to make it make more sense in the long term. So with that, I'm glad to answer any other questions, and then we could transition into the other items which Megan had explained is more creating a sufficient paper trail so that when we're all off in Tahiti, retired several years from now, when people pick up these permits and try and figure out what the heck we did, they can follow the breadcrumbs. So thank you.
Any member of the board with a question? Otherwise, we'll go on to the last part of this. Okay, Dave, keep going.
Okay, great. Thank you. So these last items that are under previous plan, it really is literally a cleanup of these items to consolidate the language so that each permit has language and tracks the minor changes that are made to each other. Because we're crossing boundaries here between Sandpiper and Meadows, we need to have all that action reflected in both the permits. Otherwise, it would create confusion down the road, particularly as the staff noted correctly. So now that we're starting to convey lots to individuals, even though there are only a handful of attorneys practicing on the island that are essentially handling all these transactions, we are getting some third parties. We are getting some other lawyers out of Boston and the South Shore, and we're trying to make it easy for everybody to follow the breadcrumbs here, as I said. So without getting overly simplistic, there's really no substantive action that's being taken here above and beyond what we already explained. It's just describing, explaining, and putting language that reflects these changes in all of these permits. So if you look at one but don't look at the other ones, you'll be able to make the connection. So that's all. The only action we're taking is related to the Sandpiper subdivision, but it will be described and explained in these other permits. And then should the board take action as requested tonight, we will come back one last time, hopefully at your next month's meeting, just to bless the duplex parking with a special permit modification.
Okay, Megan, anything you want to add here?
No, but I think Leslie wanted to maybe add something.
Okay.
Madam Chair, through you to Dave Arminetti. We had talked about some different locations for the parking, shifting it all, I don't have the direction, shifting it to the south a bit. Do the lot lines as shown on the plan with the yellow highlight match up with what we talked about? Because it looks to me like it doesn't match up.
I'm sorry, through you, Madam Chair, to Leslie's question. The graphic that's on the screen now is the final version that you and we discussed and decided upon. I think the plan that Megan might have had on the screen previously was the first iteration, but the one that she just put up is the one that has the parking shifted to the south, away from the open space, consolidated more efficiently, that we agreed to, and that should be reflected in the board's vote should they choose to approve this tonight. So we can make that distinction.
Leslie, do you want to say anything else on that?
I believe the one that's up on the screen now, sorry, Madam Chair, is correct. So it's got the driveway that comes up between lots 63 and 64, where we eliminated 2 spaces in order to not have headlights coming up the driveway access point, and to allow for a pedestrian connection across to the apartment community, which I know Leslie, both you and Megan recommended. So that does look correct, actually.
Okay, so as long as that's consistent with the sketch that was flashed up on the screen. And then what about the dumpster relocation?
Through you, Madam Chair, to that question, that relates to the detailed site plan of the Meadows 2 apartment adjacent development. We thought through that. I think I sent an email out where we indicated we could think that through some more. There's a couple of things that tend to drive these dumpster locations in practice. We looked at 2 or 3 different locations for that second refuse dumpster. Part of what's driving it is a need to have a dumpster that's fairly conveniently located between each of the three buildings and spread out a little more. It might sound a little goofy, but even from a aesthetic standpoint, having 4 or 5 dumpster containers all next to each other tends to be tough to mitigate, even with some of the lattice structures. And we've also found it also creates a much more significant property management situation with the seagulls. So we're trying to avoid that. If you spread the dumpsters out a little bit more, I don't know if the seagulls just aren't smart enough to maybe find all of them, but they don't tend to congregate as much. And then we find, I think everyone who's lived in an apartment community that maybe has dumpsters, everyone seems to have, or not everyone, a lot of people seem to have the same practice, which is they like to have the convenience of putting the trash in their car, either in the trunk or in the back seat for a few minutes, and then dumping it on their way out in their car on the way to the street. So we're trying to provide that opportunity in that one dumpster location closer to Wildflower Drive where they could do that. It would still be screened, consistent with the bylaw, but I think that's the most logical and aesthetically pleasing place to put it, but we're glad to take another look at it again before we bring that final site plan forward.
Leslie, what do you think?
I think that's fine. I mean, there will be another site plan. I just want to go, on the record with the board saying that, we have concerns about that location. It's right at the intersection. If it could be adequately screened and maybe heavily landscaped around it or something, but we don't want people driving down the street and seeing the dumpster. I mean, that's not a good spot in terms of the aesthetics and the general tidiness of the area.
Makes sense.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Through you, I want to make sure I understand what's going on. Can we go back to the first slide that shows the stub in yellow? Yeah, okay. So do I understand what we're doing is we want to take the yellow portion of those stubs and add it to the property that's immediately above it? Yeah, because no.
So they're taking land out of this lot here, which
Yeah.
is Meadows 2 rental. And they're putting little pieces into lot by lot into the Sandpiper 2 subdivision so that the parking spaces can be adequately addressed by being incorporated with the lot. So for several of these lots, that makes sense and it works out. For these guys down here, that's what Dave was explaining. They'll come back for a special permit next month, similar to as what they did for the duplex lots over here. So having them still be along the same shared driveway access, but technically speaking, they'll be located off-site. Those ones that are highlighted here, they will be located on-site and won't need any parking relief. But it does require the subdivision modification because you're adjusting the lot lines, taking it from one subdivision permit and putting it into a different subdivision permit. So that's where those language changes will be reflected in the other minor modifications below.
Okay, so just so I understand, so the stubs that are highlighted in yellow are additions to the duplex lots, not takeaways from the duplex lots.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Leslie, are you good with this, or do you want to hold it over or return to it later?
No, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Megan, how about you?
I'm totally fine with it as proposed. Just making the notes that the special permit will need to be applied for to incorporate the parking for those several lots that couldn't be dealt with the lot line adjustments. And just to note that this has been added to Leslie's list of technical amendments for next year's ATM, just to clean up the zoning district line change. So those parking spots will be in CN. And that'll have to be adjusted to place them into the R5 zoning district.
Okay, Fritz, did that respond to you?
Yes.
Okay, Dave, Nat,
Good.
okay, are we ready now to close the public hearing, Megan? John, up to you.
If there's no one, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Second.
Fritz seconded. Let's take those one at a time. John,
On the motion to close, aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, I.
Okay, I might need a little help with this, staff. I get the entire concept. Putting it into words and emotion is another thing. Just because we're taking multiple ones with the request for modifications in the 3. Yes, Meg, if you can help.
Yeah, I think that we should take the public hearing first and then we can kind of muddle our way through the minor modifications. So if there's no real conditions, I don't feel that need to be imposed. So I think you can just approve the request as proposed for the
Okay.
the two.
For the first motion, I'll make the motion to approve the request as proposed.
Second.
So John moved, Nat seconded. Dave,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, I. All right.
And on the second, we'll do, Meg, if I have this correct, we're going to do the 3 motion to approve the 3 requests for minor modifications.
Yep, that's correct. I guess we can say, so what the point is for this is the land that is subject to, was subject to Meadows 2 is now subject to Sandpiper 2. So the language changes in the respective other affected special permits and subdivisions need to reflect that land swap, if you will. So that's the reason for the
So then I'll make a motion to approve those 3 minor modifications with the staff recommendations for language, appropriate language. And do I also have to do anything with your staff? The one with the finding. Do I have to add that in?
Yeah, I would recommend making the finding that these 3 minor modifications are to only reflect the changes made to the Sandpiper 2 subdivision modification, not to reflect any proposed changes to the parking waiver, which will actually be dealt with a special permit at a later meeting, and that the proposal does not materially affect the findings and conclusions upon which the original decision and subsequent modifications were based, therefore not requiring a public hearing.
Without having to repeat that, Meg, I make that recommendation.
Thank you. Let's see for a second, Dave.
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, I. Okay. Next one, Megan.
Okay, next we have an MC modification for Fedex ground at 9 Nancy Ann. I'm gonna bring over Mary Burns, project coordinator. I think should be
Thank you, Megan. Just wanted to thank the board and thank you all for your hard work and effort here. And we'll see you all next month.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Good job, Dave.
Thank you.
So I brought over Mary Burns. I think there should be an engineer from their team, but I'm not seeing them on the line. Mary, can you hear us?
Yes, this is Robert Jones with Vortex Engineering. we're the applicant's representative. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. We are requesting the approval of a expansion to the existing FedEx ground facility. As you are probably aware, the COVID pandemic, if you will, has had a pretty big impact on shipping companies such as FedEx Ground, UPS. We're seeing quite a bit of increase in volume and the needs to service different communities. FedEx is proposing a 742 square foot pier dock addition to the existing building, some additional modifications to provide for appropriate restroom facilities, bringing water and sewer into the building, and then correcting some existing drainage issues on site, as presently the land is graded. The water actually drains into the facility versus away from the facility. The staff report and plans accurately outline the proposed project, and we have complied with the necessary zoning codes, and we would respectfully request approval of this project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Thank you. You said your name is Mr. Vortex?
Robert Jones.
Robert Jones.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Ms. Burns, do you have anything you'd like to add? Or Megan, would you like to add anything?
No, I think Mr. Jones did a good job of explaining the requested proposal. You know, we got the water compliance certificate from Wannacomet, as this is located in the public wellhead recharge district. I think there were several items that were identified in Mr. Pesci's report, but they're items that don't necessarily, wouldn't indicate that the board should continue. I think they're all items that can be addressed between staff and Mr. Pesci and the Vortex team prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay, and there's required finding about consistency with the major commercial district special permit and staff recommendation of addressing Mr. Pesci's report.
That's correct.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen out there in the public, if you'd like to speak to any of this, here's your opportunity. Otherwise, we'll be winding up the hearing pretty quickly. Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe through you to Mr. Jones or maybe to staff. Does this have any effect on the open space requirements for an MCD with the added ground coverage?
We're actually decreasing the amount of impervious surface by adding landscaped island with screening and buffering on the east side of the property adjacent to Nancy Ann Lane.
Okay, so we're good with the open space requirements there. And then, and I didn't see it in Mr. Pesci's report, but is there a maintenance plan for the stormwater system and oil and grit separators?
Yes, Mr. Pesci requested that a site-specific stormwater maintenance manual be drafted and signed by the facility's senior manager.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I see Emily Malden's hand. Emily.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. Just one short question. This may be standard protocol, but I just wanted to confirm that Mr. Pesci would maybe submit a letter or a follow-up just for the file later on to ensure that all of his concerns have been addressed. Thank you.
We'll certainly get that from Mr. Pesci prior to the issuance of any building permit.
All right, members of the board, are there questions you have? If not, I'll go back to the public one more time and then we'd be ready to close the hearing.
Just one more, Madam
Yes,
Chair, just with the new piers, the new pier loading dock, and addressing any lighting issues. Are there downcast lighting, anything, doors are open, whatever? What's been addressed with any kind of lighting, is there, or is there any?
There is lighting, and within the plan set, we had prepared a lighting plan and analyzed the isometrics and the luminaires to ensure that you didn't have any light pollution off of the property.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can close the public hearing. John, would you make that motion?
Sure, make a motion of close the
Thank
public
you.
hearing.
Nat, would you second?
Second.
Okay, we'll roll call. John,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, aye. And that closes the hearing. John, I think the request.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification to the major commercial development, also with Ed Pesci, as noted, to approve all of the issues he addressed before the issuance of a public or a building permit, and with the two staff findings, as well as the two conditions that staff noted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Dave seconds. Roll call. John,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Thank you. Okay, PLSP 2021-03-119, 8 Walbang nominee trust, 8 Walbang Avenue. I believe this one I was recused, even though I had read or watched, so that it's John, Nat, Dave Iverson, Fritz, and Dave Callahan who are going to decide on this one. Megan,
Okay.
there's some updates staff has, and then Paul or Steve may also have updates.
I am just trying to look for the plan that was circulated. I believe Catherine circulated it. I was out of the office on Friday. Paul can go into greater detail, but he's back before you today with a plan that clearly shows where the existing disturbed area is on the site, as well as a further reduction in the impervious surface area. Paul, while I'm finding this, do you want to?
Sure.
Madam Chair, just for a point of order,
Yeah.
I believe if you're recused, am I to take over as the chair in this?
Yes, that would be good. Thank you, John.
Okay, and by doing so, I think I'll acknowledge that Dave Callahan, who previously sat on the last two meetings, will be active.
That's right.
Okay, so we have Fritz, Nat, Dave Callahan, Dave Iverson, and myself.
Right.
Okay, Paul, take it away.
Okay, thank you. For the record, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, representing the property owner 8 Walbang Nominee Trust. I will say Steve Cohen, I don't believe he's going to be with us tonight, so I'll be representing the applicant for the entire time that we're discussing this. By way of background, this is a special permit request for redevelopment of an existing lot within the MMD zoning district. We are 1 week short of you seeing me for 3 seasons on this application, believe it or not. We started in February with the proposal at that time was to demolish an existing garage and demolish an existing dwelling, not for lack of trying to have the structures moved, but due to the size and construction, we believe that that may not be a possibility. So the proposal was to either remove or demolish the garage, demolish the dwelling, and construct a single family home on a lot that was previously developed with the benefit of a zone freeze that dates back to 1984, the time that the MMD zoning district came into effect. The lot itself is 80,007 square feet in size, has frontage on Walbang Avenue, and is in an area where there's, I believe, 4 or 5 developed homes that were part of that original subdivision. The remainder of the land and all the lots in that subdivision all were transferred to the Nantucket Island Land Bank. So this property is the furthest one southerly. You then have an entire area of land bank ownership, and then you have the shoreline. So to kind of briefly go through where we started and where we're at now. In February, we came before you with a request to add an additional 2,302 square feet of area devoted to decks, covered porches, and impervious surfaces. We also had a pool and we had a shed in that proposal. Came back in April with a reduction of the areas previously stated to 800 square feet and removed the pool and removed the shed. Continued until May with a reduction of the area devoted to decks, covered porches, and impervious surfaces at 1,000 square feet. And that brings us to tonight, which is the proposal is the area devoted to decks, covered porches, and impervious surfaces is an increase of 500 square feet over what is out there today. Those areas are important because those are defined specifically in the MMD, whereas they're not specifically defined in most of the other zoning districts. So currently we have on the ground 1,375 square feet of area devoted to decks, covered porches, and impervious surfaces. We're asking for what we believe is a modest request of 500 additional square feet. The existing ground cover on the property is 2,109 square feet, and we are not asking for any increase in that number. The amount of ground cover that exists on the property today will exist if this proposal is approved. That results in an approximately about a 22% change in what we originally came in with. And I think the biggest issue, though, was potentially the pool and the shed being eliminated from the application. The plan that's on the screen depicts in grayscale the existing garage, the existing dwelling. The darker building that you see is the proposed new dwelling on the property with the ground cover of 2,109. The hatched area represents what is true ground cover. The other line work appended to it is the area devoted to decks, covered porches, and impervious surfaces. What's on this plan that wasn't previously shown is a dotted or a dashed line that is the limit of existing clearing on the property. So as you can see, the work that we're proposing here is within already developed envelope of the existing property. Septic system is to the south right now within a wooded area on the property, only because the area has overgrown since the home was built originally. That's the application. I will say that from the initial application till now, you've had a positive recommendation from staff. There, I believe, at least if one was to go back and review the file, there are at least 3 letters from homeowners in the area in support of the application. I don't believe there was ever any letters from any abutters that had any issue with the application. I know the land council has expressed concern from the start. Board members have expressed concern from the start. But I feel where we're at today is a reasonable request to redevelop this residential lot. I believe that the areas that the board expressed concerns we've addressed, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have with regard to the proposal before you tonight.
All right, thank you, Paul. From the immediate board who's sitting, I'll just go, does anybody have any issues? Questions? Dave, did you raise your hand? You're muted.
Paul, thank you. And thank you to the applicant for being patient with us. And I appreciate the work. I just want to just make sure, and I really probably don't even need to say it, but that after all this is said and done, that any landscaping remains in that disturbed area and doesn't reach out. But other than that, again, I really appreciate the hard work you've all done and being patient with us as a board. Thank you.
I'll just ask Nat.
I'm good. Appreciate the patience as well.
Fritz.
I'm good.
And David Callahan.
I appreciate the effort and the reduction. So I'm good.
Okay, I believe we're still open to the public. Meg, is there anybody? No.
Yes, we have Emily.
Okay. Hi, Emily. Yes.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the board for the time that you've taken on this review as well. Certainly given the purposes of the Moorlands Management District in general, you certainly do have the ability to prohibit any additional impervious surfaces, especially given the fact, again, that this property is mapped as habitat. But I definitely appreciate the work that the applicant has done and that Paul has done. I just wanted to echo on what Dave had said. I also really appreciate that Paul has included on the plan where the delineation of the actual disturbance on the ground is. That's quite helpful. And this may already be a proposed condition. I wasn't entirely clear from what I had seen in the packet, but if the board does move forward to approve this, I think it would be appropriate to require that, as Dave had suggested, that no additional disturbance of landscaping or of the vegetation move out beyond where it's currently disturbed. So I would just ask the board to consider that condition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just have one comment with regards to that?
Certainly, Paul.
Just to limit, and only because it's where the existing 5-bedroom septic is. That's what we would call a pre-95. So that's an older system. So if there was any reason that we have to update that, which I believe we may have to at some time, whereas that's not shown because it's kind of overgrown now. I just need to be able to at least replace that septic system within that area. And it's outside the dotted line. So because it is a bit overgrown now, but it may be that's the only place that I can put compliant septic on the lot.
Okay, thank you. Any other public? Meg? No?
No, I'm not seeing anyone
Motion
else.
from the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Fritz has made a motion.
Second.
Nat second. Okay, Fritz.
Yes.
Nat.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
David Callahan.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Now on the merits.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Fritz.
To approve the request for the special permit with the the single finding set forth in the staff review. I don't see any changes that are needed there. It was staff recommended, subject to the conditions, 4 conditions set forth in the staff recommendation, with the modification, I believe that in number 1, it should reference the survey plan dated March 15, 2021, as revised May 5, 2021, and June 10, 2021. Is that okay? So we got, that's the last plan I think that I saw just put up. And I'm not, I just want to make sure Emily's concern, is Emily's concern taken care of in condition 2?
No additional disturbance with the outlined that Paul just addressed.
Yeah.
And then also, I believe, with Paul's concern, with the exception of the area that's already been disturbed by the septic.
I'd include that as well in the.
Okay, staff, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Great. Motion's been made.
I don't know whether that's a modification to 2 or a 5th condition. Probably a modification to 2, maybe. Okay.
Okay.
So I would make that motion with those findings and those conditions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nat, motion's been made by Fritz, seconded by Nat. Fritz.
Aye.
Nat.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
David Callahan.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much for your patience, Paul, and Emily, for your comments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.
Madam Chair, I'll leave it back to you.
Thank you. PL sub 2021-03-134, Lori Geddes, 13 Evergreen Way. Represented by Paul Santos.
I'm just gonna bring over Lori as well as Marianne Hanley. Give me just a moment.
Okay, we're on.
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Laurie. Hi, Paul. And good
Hello.
evening, members of the board again. I was contacted by Laurie about a month ago. I know that this approval required subdivision plan was first discussed in at your April meeting. And I've had some time to catch up with Laurie and with Paul. And I've reviewed some of the paperwork that's gone back and forth. And I know that there has been a list of conditions submitted if the plan is approved. There were original conditions submitted at the April meeting, and then there have been additional conditions in the latest staff report. All of those conditions are fine with my client. The properties will definitely be hooked up to municipal water and sewer systems. It's in Evergreen Way. It is an oversized lot in an area that's surrounded by just a variety of lot sizes, 40,000 square feet, 20, 10, 5,000, covenant lots, rear lot subdivisions. It's definitely the Heinz 57 variety of types of lots and dwellings and zoning matters. I believe that the plan that Paul has submitted should be approved by you. It meets the requirements of the subdivision control law with some requests for certain variances that are routinely granted by your board in small 2-lot subdivisions regarding roadway construction, roadway length, et cetera, et cetera. The private way the easement way is a private way that will provide road frontage once it is on the plan and the improvements are made to it. It's not something that we see a lot here on Nantucket, but there certainly are other instances where there is an easement way that provides frontage. One that I'm familiar with, and it goes back several years, is Sylvia Lane, which is right off North Beach Street. Has a 20-foot wide way that provides access to the properties. Then I think in your packet, you also have Reliance. Well, it was called Reliance way back then. I think it's now called, what is it, Delaney Road now? and it has 3 lots which come off, which have within their limits an easement way that provides the frontage for those lots. You know, the way that we're proposing provides the required frontage, and it's a street and it can be utilized for frontage under the definition of lot frontage and the definition of street, which includes private way on a subdivision plan. I guess there's been a lot of talk back and forth about a rear lot subdivision subsequently. I would remind the board that although that's a possibility, right now what we're discussing is the plan. We haven't asked for a rear lot subdivision. So I don't really want to get into a whole lot of discourse about that because that is not the application that's in front of you. The waivers that my clients are requesting are consistent with prior plans. And you know, she's not using this subdivision wouldn't be a whole lot different from a lot of them that are out there now. It's a small 2-lot subdivision with a private easement for access. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you. Yes. Would you like to say anything further? Questions to the board, from the board?
I just actually just wanted to bring up one point of order. As I said, I was not at the previous meetings, but it appears that there were 4 members sitting on this. So I'm not sure if you need to turn over chairmanship to somebody else, as you were not one of them from what I can tell, but at least from the minutes. So I leave that up to you and the staff to discuss.
I think this was one that I was sick for. I was in the hospital and
oh, sorry to hear that.
I had done what is commonly referred to as Mullind in. So I observed all the proceedings and took into account everything that was addressed.
Okay, that's great. Good to know. I'm glad you're able to be at this meeting, sort of in person, at least via Zoom.
Thank you very much. Megan, isn't that right? That's my recollection. And John, I think April, the first week of April is when I was in the hospital. So
I believe you're correct, Madam Chair.
Yep, you're correct. And I know you watched the whole recording of that meeting, but what I don't know, and Leslie might be able to clarify, is there, I mean, is it just you watch the meeting or is there paperwork that needs to be filed? I'm not sure. This is the first for me.
Okay, so for you, Madam Chair, you would have needed to fill out the paperwork and filed it with the town clerk before the meeting today.
I would have needed to.
Yeah, there's a paper that you have to fill out.
Okay, then I'll recuse myself and let someone else sit. I think that whose turn is it? I think it's Campbell's turn.
We can't activate alternates for subdivisions. So it'll just be a
This is
4.
a regular.
Okay, just to let you know, I'm here though.
It's a simple majority vote for this.
Thank you, Cam. But
Thank
I
you,
believe,
and,
Madam Chair, I'll just preside over the chair
That's
position.
good. And Megan, maybe the next time you're into town hall and are able to pick up some of the paperwork in case I need it again, that would be worthwhile. In fact, I intend to go vote tomorrow, so if I didn't have the town clerk to bother, I would be acting on it, but I hadn't recalled that I need to file paperwork. Okay, so for voting, so I take that to be John, Nat, Fritz, and Dave, and John's going to chair it from here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, we've heard from Mary Ann. Before we open it up to the public, the board, Nat, Fritz, Dave, do you have any questions or comments before we hear?
Mr. Chair, just a
Yes.
couple. I think my my feelings, questions have been adequately set forth in the memo to staff, which they've responded to. I don't necessarily agree with the responses, but I don't think we need to spend a lot of time talking about them at the meeting. I presume the board's had a chance, the rest of the board's had a chance to review all of that. I have one comment and one question, I guess. And the question, if I may, would go to Mary Ann or to Paul. And if we look at the subdivision plan, you show that the easement, and you list a square footage that's contained in the easement. You also then have a square footage for the front lot, which shows the front lot being slightly over 40,000 square feet, or the minimum lot size. Am I correct that the 40,000 square feet includes the square footage that's shown on the easement?
Paul?
Yes, that's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, so this, I guess I would address then to Mary Ann. Section 3.01 of the bylaw says that all lots shown must comply with the area, frontage, and other requirements of the zoning bylaw. So I look at the definition of lot area. Lot area says the area exclusive of any area in a street. So isn't this easement a street for purposes of the zoning bylaw, since frontage has to be on a street?
Well, it says a street or private way open to the public use. This is not, and a street can be a private way, so it's basically the same thing. And this is not open to the public use. There is a raft of case law that basically says that just because you create a private way and people drive in and out of it, it's not open to the public use.
So to be open to the public use, you're saying it modifies both street and private way?
Yes, I think it does, because a street includes a private way under our zoning bylaw.
I agree with that. Okay. Those are the only questions and the only other comment I had then was I think to request granting of the waivers under the rules and regulations, the zoning subdivision rules and regulations require certain findings. And those proposed findings are not in the staff report. And I would also note that in the prior cases that have been cited, there were no findings in either one of those decisions under the zoning bylaw, under the subdivision rules and regulations. So if we're going to do it right, I think we include those findings.
Thank you, Fritz.
Yeah.
Dave, Nat?
Nothing right now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll open it up to the public. Megan, do we have anybody that's looking to comment?
We have two people. I'll say Emily Molden's first, followed by Rachel Gates.
Okay, Emily, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily Molden for the Nantucket Land Council. So I submitted a letter to the board, which was provided in your packet. We are opposed to the proposal as is described in our letter. We don't actually see how it meets the requirements in the zoning bylaw or rules and regs governing subdivisions, specifically because the rear lot, or rather the lot in the back, does not have adequate frontage as defined in the bylaw. So therefore, I don't see how the board can make a finding that this proposal is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw as has been proposed. The definition of frontage in the bylaw is the lineal extent of the boundary between a lot and an abutting street. So it's kind of interesting. Fritz just brought up the definition of lot area, and given the response to his questions about lot area and whether this particular easement, roadway easement, is intended to be considered as a street, you can't have it both ways. It seems as though the applicant wants to consider this a street for frontage for the lot in the back, but does not want to consider it a street for lot area for the lot in the front. I don't really see how the easement can be considered a street for frontage, but you can't consider it one for one lot and not the same for the other. And then in general, if the planning board begins or continues to waive approval required subdivision requirements that are as fundamental as frontage with this type of a proposal, I mean, how many more lots on the island that are either not big enough for a separate roadway lot or don't necessarily have adequate frontage could now be subdivided with a simple roadway easement? I don't see what the purpose of those standards are if they are to be so easily waived. And just don't believe that this is an appropriate or a justified waiver for the planning board to be making. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Meg, there was someone else following.
Yep, Rachel Gates.
Hi, Rachel, welcome.
Hi, am I unmuted?
No, you're here.
Okay, perfect. So I am an abutter to 13 Evergreen, and I spoke at the last meeting back in April, but I just wanted to kind of reiterate my statement from last meeting. So I do have a letter, it is in your packet, but basically to summarize, subdividing another buildable lot in this community that could potentially host multiple dwellings, I think will just end up being detrimental to the neighborhood. We're going to have an increase in population density, affect the wildlife habitats where we've got kind of the trees and the little forested area between Evergreen and Daffodil right now, increase strain on our resources, alter those traffic patterns, and overall affect the quality and character that we have in this neighborhood. I also do worry if this subdivision is approved, that it is setting that precedent that will begin potentially a pretty rapid downward spiral into continued overdevelopment of both this neighborhood and other areas of the island. And thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. David Callahan, did I see your hand up before? No? Okay, any other questions from the board? Dave Iverson, yes.
I feel like we're getting, and I'm not saying that anyone's lying to us, but I'm just confused. I hear from a few people that you don't have the square footage, you can't use a this kind of road as frontage. Other people say yes. So is it appropriate that we ask town council to rule on this? I'm confused by it, to be honest with you. So I just don't know which way to go.
Yeah, well, the example that was giving about Reliance Way, that's now maybe Delaney Court, I think that was a little different because I was directly involved with that from one of the development, one of the houses that was developed on the left side, so I'm familiar with it. That was actually a paper road, and that was taken by, or through the garage sale for property. So it was a little bit different in this sense. There was already a pre-existing paper road that cut through, so each of the abutting neighbors were able to buy a portion of it, and that kind of complicated things. So it was a different beast. So I don't necessarily use that as a really good example. But I agree with you, Dave. This is, if I had to look at this, I would agree with Emily's definition where we're taking a lot that could be divided into two, but it doesn't have all the legal aspects that are required under the subdivision. And you can't really call it a driveway and then or a road. You can't call it a road because it's not a separate lot. And then also on the same token, use that square footage to meet your required size of your lot. So it's, again, I hate to use the term twice in one day, but you can't have your cake and eat it too. So I'm not so comfortable with this, especially as it sits right now. And the only thing I would offer as a consideration, not to extend it again, but for clarification from the council, town council, as Dave suggested, to give us an opinion about that, because as it sits right now, I wouldn't feel comfortable approving it. So any other comments about that, Dave?
Yeah, no, I'm just, listen, I would like to approve this. I just don't want to dig us into a deeper hole. And if it's legal, great, I'm in. But I'm concerned, and it's not that I don't trust anyone that's told me that it's legal. I just would like to get it from town council before I would feel comfortable with it.
Mary Ann, do you have a concern now, hearing from the board?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. If I could just address one of the comments that were made about, I mean, there are no environmentally sensitive areas in this area. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there are any MESA concerns. The reason that there are trees on some of these lots is because that's how the owners of the lots have chosen to keep them over the years. Lori's been there a long time. You know, she's lived there almost 20 years. So, and she's kept her yard the way she's kept it. As far as the density in the neighborhood, the zoning bylaw was changed. You know, it was 80,000 square feet. It was changed to 40,000 square feet. And as I said, there are lots. I mean, I believe that Miss Gates's property is at a 20,000 square foot lot. There are a lot of condos and cooperatives and that sort of. One of the things that would be happening if you approve this subdivision is that we would actually be eliminating an existing curb cut on Evergreen Way, and the properties, both lots, would only be accessed by the same road. So we are certainly thinking about travel and safety, and we're responding to that concern. As far as the lot area goes, I understand, and I agree with all of you. It is confusing when you read the zoning bylaw. It's not an easy thing. I spent a lot of time looking at this and looking at some case law, but basically a street includes a way shown on a plan endorsed by the planning board and improved in accordance therewith. I mean, that's why Reliance Lane, John, yeah, maybe it was a paper road, but it was never improved. And all of the rights in that paper road were eliminated. When the homeowners got the paper streets, they had to start from scratch. And the way they started from scratch was to create an easement roadway, which provides frontage and was endorsed by the planning board. As I said too, I'll mention again, Sylvia Lane. I mean, you can't see this, and it was done a long time ago, but there's a 20-foot wide way that provides frontage.
But Marianne, not to interrupt, but I think that Alliance Way, even with the road, it didn't affect the size of the lots. So without the road, the lots were still the 5,000 square foot, 5,000, 8,000 were still in compliance with the pre-existing zoning and their minimal size.
Right. So if we get to the lot area, you know, it says exclusive of any area on a street or private way open to the public use. And I mean, the courts have ruled on this in a case, and I have to go back quite a ways, but you know, the court basically said this has been used. Yeah, there's been firemen going down it and police, the assessor goes down there, moving vans, et cetera, but the court said, you know, this is consistent with the use of the street as a private way for the benefit of the lot owners in the development, including, of course, persons in public offices having occasion to see them or deal with them or their property. This is the kind of use that would be made of any private way connecting private dwellings to a public road, which, you know, and we're not, Evergreen is not public. I mean, it takes, you have to get out to, what's the big road, Monahans out by the airport. So, and this is a dead end road. Nobody else is going to use it.
I think the sentiment of the board is to actually be in agreement and try and find a way to do this. However, I think a couple of members, not speaking at all, are really on the fence as far as, you know, getting legal advice from our council or town council to see what their take on it. We'd love to potentially approve, but with clarification from town council, that would help. Leslie, your hand.
I mean, if you want to get something from town council, we can do that, but there's nothing in the subdivision control law, and Mary Ann can confirm this, that says that a road has to be laid out as a separate lot. I mean, that requirement doesn't exist. And our local bylaw allows for the lot area to be, inclusive of an easement road. So,
Do we also know how many 80,000 square feet, 2-acre buildable acres are in the neighborhood that might be affected with the approval of this?
I think there's just a few, maybe the 2 lots next door, and they may qualify for A&R. So most of the lots.
The issue with this lot, and not to beat a dead horse, it goes back to the regularity factor. It's such a long, narrow lot. I mean, it's more than 1.5 times the length of a football field. And then it's narrow and it's almost impossible to meet regularity. Paul's looked at it. We were able to come up with a scenario, Paul, where you could maybe get 1 lot to meet regularity, but then you had to use frontage averaging. And I don't know, it just kind of seems to make sense, at least from a planning perspective, to have 2 lots, both using the same driveway, instead of having 2 long squiggly lots with houses on them. It's,
And just, I mean, obviously, Mary Ann mentioned the R factor, but from a layman's point of view, when Lori has the property rezoned, she has 180 feet of frontage and over 80,000 square feet. The frontage requirement is 75. So she's got excess frontage, she's got excess area. And then when we say, well, there's that R factor, and then that's why we're here. We're here because of the R factor. Lori has in excess of 150 feet of frontage on Evergreen Way. She has an excess of 80,000 square feet. And the reason we're before you with an AR is because of the R factor.
Yeah. John, Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm not used to saying that.
You can call me John.
I'm going to throw a little different spin into this thing. This area had, a lot of irregularities, okay, for years and years, okay? And when we change the zoning out here, this is similar to Bayberry with the 1-acre lots with R20 sitting in there since what, 77, 78. And the real lot subdivision provision has allowed us to, in a lot of these cases, restrict people while giving the ability to subdivide a lot that's got enough land but doesn't meet A&R. There's a lot of people that don't like A&R because it's too easy to subdivide, let's just say. And I understand those points of view, but when you have over 80,000 square feet of land in a 1-acre zoning district with, as Paul said, tons of frontage, but you have this little quirky irregularity factor that I still don't understand after all these years, why you can't subdivide off of that frontage because of that. It's in my opinion, and this is another thing, this spot is ripe for gentrification, trophy homes, STRs. I think we had enough for that last weekend, but this is the problem. We're trying to create local housing in different ways to keep people here. The secondary lot provides a great thing, but you can't do it from something this big. It needs to be made smaller and restricted. So, I want to approve this, but I'm one guy that, I'm looking beyond all the stuff because we haven't lost a case in court. So I wouldn't expect this one to be lost. So I agree that if that's where everyone wants to go, but we're doing a service by utilizing the zoning, yet restricting what can be built with an approval. So
Thank you.
everybody wins. And, you know, I don't like seeing people make comments that are just not realistic when you have to look at this whole entire area as a holistic, old Nantucket sort of slow development, sort of from the inside out, really, because you got the smaller zoning on the inside and the bigger zoning on the airport side. And that's where the development really started on the inside with the daffodil stuff and the goofy covenant, the condo stuff. That's all going to probably get fixed at some point and turned into something slightly different to get those people their own lots. And so this is, and I look at this as the positive outcome of what we've done over the last 10 years out here. So that's my spiel at the moment.
Thank you, Dave Iverson.
This could be one of the most painful things I've ever said, but I agree with you, Nat.
I know you do. It's okay, Dave. You're live. It's okay to say it.
But I don't want to paint ourselves in a corner and do something that we are going to regret as a board in the future. And I just really think it's important that we get this right. And if it takes an opinion from town council, I mean, I'm sorry, Lori, to back you up another month, but I just think it's important for us going forward. We've had enough mud thrown at the planning board. We don't need more thrown at it. And I want to get this right. And that's how I feel.
Thank you. Mary Ann, Lori, and you just by hearing the comments of the board, it's not as if we're opposed to this from a a practical standpoint, how you'd like to have it. It's really a principle standpoint, looking at our zoning right now, and to just put it out there right now and ask for a vote. You might not get it. My thought for you would be to extend or continue it for another month, have town council at least give an opinion so that we can, whether it's warranted or not, and if it has any legal basis, it still would ease some of the board members' minds to know what town council thinks about it, and then really come back next month. I just think as it is right now, it just opens up a can of worms in similar situations where you just have the bare minimums for two lots, whether it's in log 2, log 3, or something like that. And if we don't have the road frontage and we're dealing with this, it's not just this particular area. All of a sudden, it opens up as a precedent for the entire island where people have the square footage, but they don't have the actual, if they're going to add a road, and it won't count towards the ground cover. And then I would really like to get town council's opinion to have really a good vote on this. But if you think you'd like to go now.
This is reminding me of Brock's Court and some of those other little ones that just in smaller areas, John. You know what I mean? When you look at something like this and you look at some of the other ones that have been done, you don't think about it as the same way because they're already in a dense area, but it's the same principle. There's a lot of it. It's and that Sylvia Lane one, I was just down there the other day. I didn't know that. That's the new one on me, but that's a good example.
Well, I think we're going to beat a dead horse where you have a good feel of the board, and I'll leave it up to you whether you'd like to continue to have us addressed with town council or take a vote now.
Lori, it's your call. I can't hear her.
Oh, you're muted, Lori. Muted.
You're muted. Lori, we can't hear you.
Lori, you're muted.
Oh,
sorry.
Lori, you gotta press the button, Lori.
Mouse, lower left-hand corner.
I can't wait till this is over. I can't.
Yeah, maybe we'll be at
next month.
I have an in-person affordable housing trust fund meeting tomorrow.
Good.
Oh, good for you.
ComCom is live next week.
Nice. There you go.
There you go, Lori.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Planning Board
I've been called worse.
Members and staff, and of course, Mary Ann and Paul. My thing is currently I am renting to 4 year-round people in my home. And a lot of them have been with me since I built my home. And my planning after the first house I built is never to do a lawn as big as I did this one. So my plan is to plant evergreens between each house and close up the road and keep this more private. I just don't understand why down the road there are lots of lots that are like 0.24 acres. I mean, everyone's talking about cutting up evergreen, but I look down the street and I don't understand how they could all do that, but I'm not allowed. One of the lots that's still available here is my sister's that is right next to me. I bought this lot for my grandmother's estate when I was 19 years old. And it seems to me, when I look at the geo map, everyone is split up, everyone is co-opted, except a couple that Mary Ann said. I do not plan on doing big construction. I could not afford that. I am just trying to make a future for my daughter to be able to stay on Nantucket.
Thank you, Lori. And the board does hear that, and we're very sympathetic to that. However, a lot of the lots that you're commenting on, we're not going to look at individually because we can't. Some of them are in a different zoning than others, and they've met the requirements for the subdivision. So what we're trying to do is you have the sentiment of the board. We're pulling for you. However, we're just asking that town council review it and give us an opinion about it before we either vote in the positive or negative.
Okay, well, the only thing is, when this subdivision was done, I was actually working for Walter Guwacki. And those lots up the road were not those small lots that they are today.
Okay. Lori, you need 3 favorable votes. And I get the sense that you're not going to get 3 of them tonight because I think 3 of the members have questions, maybe 4 do. So
Yeah.
I think that we could probably continue to the next meeting so that you can get
That's
some
fine.
information from town council
I
rather.
think that's good advice, Mary Ann.
You think? Yeah, it doesn't make sense to go to court over this. Let's see if we can get this resolved fairly quick.
Okay. So board, is there a motion to continue?
I'll make that motion.
Motion continue
Before I
next meeting.
second,
Yeah.
before I second that, I want to make sure that action deadline is okay, Leslie. I don't know what the date is for the next meeting, and I just want to make sure that we're
Good call.
good here.
July.
Action deadline 7/11. Do we meet that?
Is
Okay.
that,
You can get an
that-
you'll see an extension, right, Mary Ann, Lori?
Excuse me?
I didn't hear you.
You'll sign an extension, right?
Yes,
yeah,
I haven't yet.
No,
but
no,
I-
I'll give it to you. I'm
I
not
will.
gonna spell it. I'll do it Wednesday.
Great.
Thank you.
okay.
All right, we
So
have
any
a
issues?
motion to continue to the next meeting from Dave Iverson. Is there a second?
Second,
Nat seconds. Okay, Dave,
Aye.
Nat,
aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Thank you very much. Sorry for your troubles, but we'll see you next month.
Okay, thank
You
you.
all in person next month.
Thank you. Okay, Judith, thank you very much for your patience. You have the chair.
Okay, thank you, John. I think you folks did a good job, so I'm not going to try to mull in on this at this point, but I agree that it's fine to get the town council opinion. What we've got next is PLSP 2021-04-124, Johanna Gutzman, 8 New Mill Street.
That would be
And
me, Madam Chairman.
yes, public hearing was not open in the May meeting.
Linda's representative is the representative for the applicant, Madam Chair.
Stephanie Blazo, you'll see, and her husband are both on here. They're actually the owners of 8 New Mill Street.
And I believe, based on the prior hearing, that there were comments from neighbors, if I remember from what is in the staff report. Megan, is that true?
That's correct. We had received, if you remember last month, we received a flurry of emails from some of the abutting property owners right before the public hearing. So the matter was continued to be open this month. Those email correspondence were included with your packet.
Okay. So, Linda, do you want to present?
Yeah, I'll make it fairly quick. I did, I know you have the packet that we put in showing all of the parking areas in that square block that are doubled and quadrupled width and depth. And I know I sent the 8 New Mill Street neighborhood parking space data. I'll run through it quickly. Of the 12 properties that have frontage or address New Mill Street, 7 have either double wide or double deep, and 1 is double wide and double deep. There is no parking on 8 New Mill Street on our side, so the 2 spaces would not be eliminating any on-street parking. However, if one of them was eliminated after almost 20 years, 18 plus years, that would drive 1 space out onto the street. So if you add our 2 spaces together, they add up to a double wide space. Now, everybody on the map, Megan, if you can go to the map. There. All of those are double wide or double deep and double wide. If anybody, because there's such limited parking, I don't believe there's any on-street parking on New Dollar, Mill Street, it's variable. On New Mill Street, only one side of the street. On Milk Street in that section, none. If you were able to have enough property to put 2 spaces on your property, they did. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Over 20 put double wides or double deep parking on their property because there's nowhere else to park. These spaces were put in before the applicant bought this property. So the constant refrain from the neighbors that she should not be rewarded is kind of misplaced. Pepper Fraser's family owned it. They put the one in on the north side. If you go down below on the 1998 map below this one, you'll see the north space. If you go down to the next one, which is 2003, I believe, both spaces are there. And they've been there ever since, but she made them much nicer spaces than what were there, which is pretty much dirt. If you go to the next one, they're beginning to get a little more regulated. 2007, when she bought the property, she fixed it, put shell in it, and there's a cobblestone apron. When you go to 2011, they remained unchanged. 2014 remained unchanged. We're not extending the driveways anywhere. 2018, they are regularized because she put shell in the other one, so it looked better than dirt. And 2019, they remain the same. The board, stay right there for a second, please. The board already approved a garage apartment at the end of the south driveway. All of this came up because of renting the house, which has nothing to do with anything. In fact, the applicant is building the garage apartment for her family. The one directly across the street, you see the 190 on, is rented constantly all the way through into October at the moment, because you can see the rental agreements online. And you can see the weeks that it's rented, but not a comment. This all came up because some of these same people are suing 14 New Mill at the top of the street because it's a rental unit. So I don't want to get lost in the weeds on this rental issue, which was pretty soundly defeated also at town meeting.
Okay, Linda,
Linda,
I'm
yeah.
gonna ask you to just.
Right, but the
maintain
majority of the
stability
properties,
here.
we don't want to get rid of either one of them. We don't want to increase the size of them. We would just like our double wide parking space, like the two across the street, to be one on one side and one on the other side, because they've existed since 2003 at the latest, probably before that. It just, there's no aerial between 1998 and 2003. She's legal use of her property and she'd like to keep both spaces. When she came in for the garage apartment, you guys asked her to come back and get a special permit to validate the 2 spaces. So that's why she's here. She's not here to do anything else, but just validate the 2 spaces that have existed for 18 plus years. Thank you. I'm not sure if Stephanie has anything to add. I see her here. I didn't know if she wanted to unmute.
Hi, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
They can hear you.
We can hear you.
Hi, thank you for considering my application. I never even knew that my second driveway was an issue. When I bought the property, it was never mentioned to me that a second driveway required anything additional. It seemed like it had always been there. And up until I applied for the garage, I wasn't even expecting any kind of an opposition to the fact that there was a driveway always there. It's not hidden by any means. It's in full sight and has been. And if anything, when I improved on it, the neighbors were actually grateful because it looked better than what it was before, because I put a cobblestone apron at the top of the longer driveway. So I think, without getting too much into this, I think that the hope perhaps of some of the people who are objecting this is just that if they somehow get me to remove the second driveway, I won't build the garage, but the garage is going to be built regardless of whether there's a second driveway there or not. So I think the 2 issues truly are separate. And I think that the second driveway is perhaps another way, hopefully, for someone to get around the fact that I was approved the garage already, which was by my right because of the lot size. So I do appreciate your consideration of these are sticky topics in Nantucket right now, but from my perspective as a homeowner, the reason why I paid as much as I did for a property that was in extreme disrepair when I bought it was because of the lot size and because I could have a garage there. And so for me, it's like a lot of ado over, in my opinion, not very much, because it's always been there. And it would not have been an issue had I not applied for the garage. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Okay, members of the board, I see Charles Davis with his hand up. Mr. Davis.
Try that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Charles Davis, over at 15 Mill Street. And in the interest of time, I've been asked to kind of consolidate comments from the roughly 12 neighbors who've expressed an interest in this matter. I'd lead off just by saying a couple things. None of us, this isn't nothing to do with Act Now. It has nothing to do with the dispute up the street with respect to the rental property. We're just neighbors. We're neighbors that listen to and get to watch drinking games on the back porch of 8 New Mill. So we've got a concern about what this means for our neighborhood and frankly, for Nantucket as a whole. So a bunch of us sent in notes that I think ended up going in earlier today because I think Megan's emails were bouncing back over the weekend. So they went through Catherine and Sarah. So what I'm going to do is just see if I can run through very quickly the points that we all think are relevant here. And this is one that I'd like to lead off with. And it's just really a question. There are no curb cuts for the 2 driveways at this point in time. So maybe a question for the board to consider is, are there actually permitted driveways at 8 New Mill? Lack of complaints about the already constructed driveways at 8 New Mill really shouldn't be a rationale for a special permit. I mean, that, in our view, at least sets the town up for having some problems with respect to unhelpful precedents. Assertions of non-compliance with current zoning at other properties in town as historically significant as Nantucket does not justify a special permit for this property. Allowing 2 sets of curb cuts would effectively subdivide the property, allowing for 2 separate driveways for the 2 structures and more tenants. And as I referenced earlier, more noise emanating from the property. So again, we think this could set a bad precedent for future applications of this type. Permitting parking for 4 cars at a rental unit does not take them off the street. It will simply induce 4 more cars to be brought onto the already congested island. And just as a side note, this appears to run in direct conflict with the goal on page 30 of the Nantucket Long Range Transportation Plan that was published back in April 2019, which seeks to reduce the number of motor vehicles on the island. Granting a special permit for 2 sets of curb cuts might benefit Ms. Basile, but we question how it would really, in quotes, protect the safety and general welfare of the inhabitants of the town of Nantucket, end quotes, as contemplated in the preamble to section 139-20.1 of the town bylaws, which address driveway access. So in summary, we just simply ask, why can't the owners of 8 New Mill be satisfied with 1 driveway at the location of the proposed garage apartment? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there other members of the public who'd like to speak?
Might I speak after them one more time, Madam Chair?
Yes, yes, you can. I'm just catching them up right now. Go ahead, Ms. Williams, and then we'll go to the board.
If we went to the pictures which I sent to you, I also gave you an idea of where everybody lived on an earlier submission that was part of the original packet. I just hate to say that 15 New Mill has an illegal cut. It's 3 spaces wide and has a garage apartment which is in full view of Mill Street. Ours is not. It's down the hill. That's just irritating. And drinking games on the back porch, I don't think that's material or fair. All their back porches between Mill and New Mill and this on the right side of New Mill all face each other in the back. We just happen to have an extra large lot, which a lot of them do not. As far as the curb cuts, we didn't disturb the curbing. It wasn't disturbed in 2003 and it's not disturbed now in order to access the 2 parking spaces because Matt can probably tell you this, he's up and down that street all the time. The curbing is very we're not planning on disturbing the actual curb because it's so low to the ground, which is what's not uncommon up in that area. As far as allowing a subdivision by having 2 parking spaces, that's ridiculous. So I won't say anything more about that. As far as the cars are concerned, there's one across the street from us that can get 4 or 5 cars in theirs, and I don't think that's a problem for anybody. We're not claiming to reduce the traffic on Nantucket. We're just not. It's not part of what any of us are doing. On New Dollar, Mill, New Mill, and Mill, get the cars off the street, which she's done. You can't really park 2 cars on the northern parking area, so it's not 4 cars. I hazard a guess we can't get 4 cars on the right side either. Protect the safety and the welfare of the neighborhood is not having on-street parking. And again, we're not taking any parking away by these 2 remaining because there's no parking on that side of the street. So I really would appreciate it if you would give her double wide, which happens to be 2 separate ones that have existed longer than most people have parking on that street or Mill Street for that matter. And let her keep the 2 spaces. They're not hurting anybody. They're not going anywhere. They're not adding to the parking or the traffic. In fact, it's just the opposite. Whoever rents the house or doesn't rent the house is immaterial. and drinking games certainly are immaterial. Thank you.
Okay, Patricia Beilman.
Hi, I'm in a butter behind the 8 New Mill Street lot. My husband David Poor and I live at 17 Mill Street. I just wanted to support Chuck Davis's note and rebut some of the things that Ms. Williams has put in her comments. She has inaccurately portrayed the parking spots around the neighborhood. She has called a grass field, a grass yard, as a potential parking space for 4 cars. And by that logic, she would be able to call Ham Ponyfield a parking lot. So I think just because Ms. Williams is a very strong advocate and speaks very strongly on her client's behalf, does not mean she's right. I know that she's had a lot of experience in this town with a lot of different committees, but it doesn't make her arguments correct or right, just because she continues to rebut what the neighbors have said. Ironically, when you look at the aerial pictures of all the neighborhood lots, especially the ones on New Mill Street, well, specifically we're talking about New Mill Street, there are no other houses on New Mill Street that have 2 driveways, period, the end. So I just, I wanted to rebut Ms. Williams because she is always requesting a rebuttal for after people have spoken. And so I wanted to just highlight that the neighbors are very concerned about the precedent that this will set, and the points that Chuck Davis made are very thoughtful and careful, and we strongly are concerned about this potential of having 2 driveways. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, just want to correct something. There's a reverberation. I never said that there was 2 parking areas.
I want to hear from.
I said that it was everybody, 7 of them have double wide, so they have 2 spaces.
Linda, I want to hear from Megan and the board first.
Yep.
Megan, as I understand it, we're talking about a second driveway access, and that this relates to a driveway that was installed back in 2004 to 2007. It's not currently subject to a formal zoning violation. Are there other things you want to tell us about it?
I think that it's just important to recognize that while this doesn't necessarily can't fall under the pre-existing non-conforming because it doesn't predate 1998. The driveways have been in existence for nearly 20 years in their current configuration. Had the applicant not applied for a garage apartment, it wouldn't have been on anyone's radar. It's not subject to a current zoning violation. There haven't been neighborhood complaints prior to the noticing of the public hearing. The reason why it could not be approved as a part of the garage apartment application is because only second dwellings can approve a second driveway access. And in talking with Leslie, we feel that that might be something that should possibly be addressed through a technical amendment at a town meeting at some point in the future, to keep the same provisions in the garage apartment and tertiary dwellings as we have for the secondary dwellings. So just putting it into context, I just wanted to offer that perspective of what's before you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me ask the board initially, Nat.
Got a lot to say, Madam Chair. I might have to pause me and to come back. I've been around this second curb cut thing for a long time, and in the ROH district, I've said to everyone that's come on to this board, and when I got on, I was told the same thing. Go look at them, every one of them. So I've been over here a bunch of times. I was there today as well. People, be careful what you all wish for out there, because you're going to need one someday, or your friends, or somebody else you know in the area. This curb cut that this person has looks like it's been there for a lot longer than 20 years. The curbing on that side of the street is about 2.5 inches revealed. It's got two terrible telephone poles right in the way, unfortunately, which is typical in Nantucket downtown. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with what this person has. Okay. Every one of these that we look at, whether it's Mulberry Lane a few years ago, whether it's the one on next to Martin's Lane a few years before that, you have to look at them for what the practicality of it. How hard is it for somebody to get in, to get out? The neighbors at number 12 back in to their double wide space, and there's plenty of space for, you can almost slip another car in if you drive correctly. It's too bad that we get into these little wars about parking off street. I feel bad because it shouldn't happen, because everybody in these neighborhoods could have the same thing happen to them, where they want to slip one more car off the street. So I don't have any issue with it at all. I think that the only thing that I would ask staff is, when the properties transfer, I mean, we've had a lot of second curb cuts out in the middle of nowhere that have been picked up as never been permitted. And I can't remember the last one in the core district, but I know there's a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot more of them out there. So I'm just happy that they're not adding any length or asking for anything more than what they already have, which I think is the biggest, most important thing. So thank you, Madam Chair, for my time.
Thank you. Let's see, who's next? Dave, John, or Fritz?
Just a few points here. I mean, the curb cut has existed for well over 10 years with no zoning violations attached to it. So I think that in itself, and I feel for the abutters, and I understand where they're coming from, but I think they need to understand is, one, they have a legal right to build their garage. Okay, so regardless of a curb cut, there's going to be another housing unit on that property. And as far as the rentals and the drinking game goes, that has nothing to do with the curb cut. We could take away both of their curb cuts. If it's a rental, unfortunately, it happens. I mean, it's and I feel for you and I get it. But I think to just keep things in perspective here, they have existed for well over a decade. There's never been a zoning enforcement to them. And you know, I voted against curb cuts more than I voted for them. This one has been around for a long time, and I'm going to have to vote yes for it, just because it's not really changing anything. So, and finally, I just hate that now I've agreed with Nat and Linda in the same meeting. So that's all I got.
Okay, Fritz, and then John.
Yeah. Well, I agree with the statements. This doesn't have anything to, I mean, with the comments that been made, you know, it doesn't have anything to do with the noise or anything else. But And I've driven by, matter of fact, I stopped, I walked up and down the street to look at the other houses on the street. I took pictures and then I looked at them sort of over the past week, every now and then. And what I really get hung up with is saying that those two curb cuts, the way they look, don't have an adverse effect on the scenic and historic integrity of the neighborhood. And for that reason, I can't support it.
Thank you, Fritz. John?
Wow, I got a lot. First of all, I really wish it didn't come to us to acknowledge the legality of it. And second, some of the comments not necessarily should be used for the planning purposes, and if it came down to drinking games in the backyard, guilty is charged. So I can't acknowledge that. But Nat said it, careful what you wish for. If you don't have parking off the street, then they're going to park on the street. And as Dave said, they're going to get a legal second dwelling or garage, apartment, etc. So it's going to be built. It's going to have the same amount of people. And if it takes parking on the street, they're going to park on the street. And if there's a legal space to park, they're going to do that. Where right now they could remove some. That being said, I have to make a couple of comments. We approved a second curb cut, a double wide, over on Lily Street. There was a lot of debate about it. We justified it by the length of the property to make it look like there were two units there, and it was very isolated because when you went up Lily Street, there weren't too many properties like that had that long frontage. So we justified it and we approved it. And we said that careful, this could be precedent setting. And we said, no, this is, nothing to worry about. I think the next application that we received next month was on Westchester, trying to do the same thing, parking, and we denied that one. Soon after that, we received another second curb cut application on Wall Street in Brand Point. Now I'm talking about different areas now. We're spreading out. And for better or for worse, people are looking at it and they're looking at our vote and they're seeing if we approve it and they're doing it. So we tried to make a suggestion for that Walsh to say, hey, we get it. It would be a benefit if you did that. We're trying to look at it from a benefit standpoint, and it was. But we suggested maybe using the honeycombs with the grass so it doesn't appear as an actual curb cut or a driveway. So there are other ways around it, and it really looks like the planning board is asked to really mediate between neighbors. And it's been in existence for 10, 20 years. Maybe there was an issue, but there wasn't enough of an issue to bring it to court or try and get it removed. Now, because of a technicality with the second, the garage, it brought about the legality of it. So the planning board is asked, does it have a right? Does it not have a right? And I hate that Linda terms it as double wide because that really paints a bad picture. I'd rather just have it as a curb cut. But because of, the precedent setting part of it, I wish the neighbors would just resolve this on their own, because in principle, with the flurry of second curb cuts that are going to come down in the historic district and in the R1 neighborhood and things like that, where they're tight 5,000 square foot lots, I'm really, really concerned about it. So for that reason, I would be voting negative. And I just, again, the neighbors, careful what you wish for, because now instead of having a couple cars off the street, you're going to be on the street, and New Mill is not the widest street. And now you're going to be complaining about cars not being able to maneuver and turn into your own driveways because there are cars on the street. So it's really it's a dilemma, but hopefully you'll work it out. But my position on this is I would have to deny it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, anybody else? I think I've heard from everybody at this point.
Madam Chairman, could I just have one comment in closing?
Yes, I'm just going to say to Ms. Beelman, we heard you previously. I don't know if you had in mind to speak again, but I think we should be hearing if you need to speak again, go right ahead, Ms. Spielman.
Oh, that was me, not Miss Beelman.
No, it's actually Miss Beelman's husband, David Poor. And I just wanted to add the comment that this is exactly what we wish for. We think this is, in fact, allowing a subdivision here. We will think this will lead to more cars in the street, creating additional parking. So that's what our concern is. Our concern is that it's not going to help the parking. You're attracting more cars with a two essentially subdivided property here in an area that really can't sustain it. So that's what our concern is. And so it's not, when you say be careful what you wish for, this is exactly, we're hoping to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, can I have a comment now?
Ms. Williams, yes, it's your turn.
There is no subdivision planned, and that's, I can't even respond to that because it's ludicrous. There's no subdivision at all. It's a 7,000 plus square foot lot, so it's oversized. And to address John's concerns, we would not be here asking for a second curb cut like all the other ones, including the one on Lily, which didn't have one, and you gave it to him. We would not be here asking for the second curb cut. We are here validating the two curb cuts that already exist, which is entirely different than asking for a new curb cut, because we'd like to keep the ones that are already there, because they constitute, the word you don't like, double wide, they constitute two side-by-side spaces, but they're separated. Unlike everybody else on the street, one has 4 spaces in it. So that's all we're asking to do, is to keep the status quo, not add another one. And if we didn't have a second one right now, we certainly would not be here asking for a second one, because then you would be entitled completely within your jurisdiction to deny it. All we're asking is to keep the 2 spaces we already have. And instead of having a negative vote, we would withdraw this and come back for a secondary dwelling upon which you can ask for 2 curb cuts. I mean, why would we want to go through that kind of exercise, frankly?
Madam Chair, can I like try to get everyone off the ceiling here? This is insane. I can't believe I'm hearing all this. This is the ROH district, okay? It was built 200 years before the first car brought by Clinton Folger in 1918. Are we sure? Okay. The houses were where they were on the lots. So everybody that has created a little space, whether they have 1 or 2 or a double wide, I don't know if that's the right term, but whatever, was because of where the house was located from the whaling days. Okay. Some people have a space for 1, some people don't. Some people have space for 1 bigger parking area, and some have space for 2 little cute ones. It just depends on where their house is. I can't believe some of the things that have been said. It's shocking to hear. These are imperfect areas. All the streets are imperfect. That's what makes it special, okay? Look at Gardner Street, talk about imperfect. But in reality, each one of these situations is its own DNA. It's got its own quirks that work for that property owner. Somebody else has a different quirk. We approved one on North Mill Street, I think it was in 2009, and they had to take their spare tire off their Jeep to fit for 1 board member to vote for it. That's how crazy it was. It's right over there. You can all go look at it. So every one of them is different in town. The out of town stuff, as Dave mentioned, is easier to question because you have more land in different situations, traffic from different directions, etc. But in town, in these small one-way streets, especially on the side where there's no parking, you should be looking at these things favorably within reason. This building is going to bring people to it one way or the other.
I'm going to ask for a continuance when it's time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Let's see if there's anything else from anybody.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
It's Dave. I just want to make sure that the gentleman from the abutter understands that we're not validating a second curb cut. That doesn't mean they don't get their garage apartment. There's still going to be another unit. So there's still going to be another housing unit on the property. So the people are going to be there. They're just going to have to park on the street. So I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Thank you, Dave. Fritz, you've already spoken. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, Madam Chair.
John, did you have everything you wanted to say?
I think so. I'm good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, I think it's time to close.
Oh, please don't close the public hearing, just continue it.
Just a second to see if there's anything else from the board that anybody wants to speak before we follow Linda's request that we continue the hearing.
I just want to say, I, try to be as balanced as I can. And I know when my fellow members deny something like these curb cuts in other places, but boy, when you come into this core district in R1 and ROH, you got to press a different button on your computer screen because it's just tough, nothing like anywhere else. And all we talk about is parking in town, and I try to do my little things that I can do with right-of-way committee and traffic safety. But when you can get a car off the street, whether the car is here yet or not, or whether it's an existing car that's on the street, you want to try to get it off the street if you aren't giving up an on-street space by doing so. That's all I have, man.
Okay, there's a request for continuance. We'll see who has what to say on that. Who'd like to make a motion on that?
I make a motion to continue.
Thank you, Nat. Is there a second?
Second.
John seconds. Fritz?
Are you asking for a vote?
Yes.
Aye.
And Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, so we have a continuance here.
Thank you.
Okay. Last item, other business 4181-I Young's Way.
Madam Chair, before other business public comment, I just want to give a shout out to my son Xander for his 22nd birthday tonight. Sorry, buddy, I can't make it, but I'll make it up another day. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Z.
Is he related to you, Megan?
A little bit.
Okay.
Husband is John's nephew.
So this is a draft letter for review and approval. Similar to 41 and 81-Is that the board has discussed. And then this is a link to the section 81I of the legislation below. Megan or Leslie, do you want to speak to this?
All right, MGL Chapter 41, Section 81I requires that prior to a public way being laid out, that it is referred to the planning board for comment and any recommendation. So you have a map in your packet. A portion of Young's Way is being considered by the county commissioners for a taking for a public road. And there's the plan. So it's parcels 1 through 4, which basically go from Old South Road past the turn in Young's Way. This would allow the land to the, I can't see the direction. yeah, sorry, Megan's moving the thing around so much. The land on the north side of the road would be able to connect into Young's Way if it's a public road. If it's a private road, you know, they won't be able to, and we don't want to have two parallel roads when that property is redeveloped, which, you know, you've seen a preliminary plan for that. So this would allow for, you know, better planning for access to that parcel. So we recommend that the board vote to have the chairwoman sign the letter that's in your packet, and any specifics, you know, for additional improvements or sidewalks or anything like that, you know, can be considered later. I mean, right now the road's paved, it's in good condition. So it's adequate to become public.
Okay, members of the board, comments from you? Fritz?
I have no questions.
Okay, Nat,
Oh, very good.
John?
Yeah, I love it. I was just a question about Young's being private right now. How about the sewer upgrades and things like that? That might later on. Is it adequate for the development that's going to be there, or once we take it over, will we be updating that?
I don't know the answer to that, but obviously when, you know, a project plan comes forward, we'll have to consider how to deal with all of those utilities.
Yeah. But looking at the narrow lot, I think it's a really good idea because it just takes away, it doesn't, you know, it just, you don't have two roads so close to each other with buildings that barely separate by, you know, a toothpick. So I think it's a really good idea if we can.
Okay, let's see, Dave Iverson and Nat.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Nat,
fine.
okay, is this one with a hearing?
No, it's just a vote of the board.
Okay, we'll entertain that then. Who'd like to make the motion?
I'll make a motion that we ask our chair, Judith, to write a letter for a positive motion to, or Leslie, what's the term that we need to use? A positive motion to endorse or the town taking of this? Or we back the town?
Oh, sorry. So the motion would be that you vote to, you know, support the taking of Young's Way as a public road in accordance with the plan as shown, which that's in the letter.
Great. That's what I would like to make as a motion and have Judith address that to the town.
Okay, John moved, Fritz seconded, Nat,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Okay, I think that's everything except adjournment. So you ready to adjourn?
Yes. Oh, okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second.
Nat,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Judith, aye. Thank you, and thank you to our staff again for all you do for us.
Thank you all. Have a good
Bye,
night.
everybody.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Everyone.
This is the best. Night.
I expired.